खोल लूंगा मैं. हाँ ठीक है. चलो, I should start. I don't know from where this chat box is appearing. So let's minimize it. Let's start about this. Question number 1 for today. ठीक है. Question number 1 for today. Yesterday or in last class we have discussed about American Revolution, French Revolution, then Napoleonic politics, something about that, not in great detail, and then the Chartist movement in Britain. And today, I should start, although in a sense I have skipped the revolution of 1830 and 48, but second question will make us understand, or let's take the second question. I'll discuss first question later. Second question was added as an afterthought. So question number 2, if it's available to you, 1 will be taken later. In Europe, the special characteristic of the years between 1850 and 70 was a close alliance between liberalism and militarism. So many of you might have this issue with a lot of isms, and I have willfully given this. What is militarism? What is liberalism? So I have seen students generally do not think in it. We think in events. So as we think in events, events are always more important. Believe me, events are always more important. For hardcore theories of history, we have subjects like political science, like sociology, and a lot many. But history means that all these events need to be seen in the light, all these theories need to be seen in the light of events. Just if I ask you, कि Hindutva is on the rise, so if you are a student of some other subject, you will simply remember this: Hindutva is on the rise. And you don't have your events to counter it. So आपने एक theory पढ़ ली, you have read a theory, and there is very less opportunity that you can counter it. You need a great knowledge for that. But studying of history means you will know the events and you will easily counter it. आप इसको counter कर सकते हैं by a lot of facts and stats. I'm not going to there. The reason is it's contemporary politics, and generally we take or we allow some time to settle it, to give our conclusions. This question that in Europe, special characteristics between 1850 to 70. ठीक है. 1850 to 70 is the time of alliance between liberalism. एक second यार, let me settle. Liberalism and militarism. So before I proceed, let me tell you about the two revolutions, and then we will see the question number 1, which is about German unification. So there are two revolutions. One is the revolution of 1830 and another is the revolution of 1848. And we will see how these revolutions took place, how majority of them were failures. And we call these revolutions as the spring of nations. Spring of nations. Spring का मतलब होता है, I guess, कि रेन, वसंत ऋतु, when those पल्लव फूल जो निकलते हैं, so that is called the spring. When against the oppressive empires people rise, we call it spring. The latest spring of this word was in 2011, when the Middle East rose against, or that Maghreb part, Northern Africa, rose against the dictators. We call that Arab Spring. हमने उसे Arab Spring कहा. So the reason calling that Arab Spring is that nations means the people rose in rebellion against the oppressive regimes. तो उसको spring कहते हैं. These two are called the spring of nations. Many of you might not have any idea about it. Many of you might have little bit idea about it. Idea ho ya na ho. We will see that what is this spring and what does this mean. तो पहले तो मैप बना लेते हैं. Let's make the map to understand So this is the rough map of Europe, which you must remember, and this is the Holy Roman Empire, the dotted one. So in Europe, or anywhere for that part, 19th century saw the rise of a new type of politics. If you want to write a question, you can write it that after French Revolution, more than liberty, fraternity or equality, the biggest issue appeared was the struggle of empires and nations. Nations or empires के बीच का struggle. Now first understand what is empire. Empire is any power which like an octopus spread itself wherever it can. जहां उसका पैर समाता है, जहां सींग समाता है, wherever it want to go, or wherever it can go, it goes. British Empire, it stopped in Afghanistan. Afghanistan पे जाके रुक गए. Not because they do not have any designs for Afghanistan. You must have seen 2 Anglo-Afghan wars. एक दोस्त मोहम्मद, एक वो शेर अली खान. Then you will see कि British Empire did not stop at Afghanistan because they, out of their benevolence or out of their some plan. Because they cannot win it. जिसको जीत पाए उसको जीत लिया. So likewise these empires spread wherever they can. जहां तक वो जा पाती है वहां तक चली जाती है. However, when you will see the nations, so nation means a group. If you want to write, please write. A group of people with shared perception of past. A group of people with a shared perception of past and with a shared vision of future. Past का perception उनका same हो. Past का perception means everyone should think that this king was bad or this empire was bad or these people were bad in our history. उनका event का interpretation same हो. It's not that one is celebrating World War II, another is rejecting World War II. Now you go into Israel and you start cheering Adolf Hitler, you are not the part of Israel nation. And for the shared vision of future, कि future में भी आपको साथ रहना है. A group of people which have common bond or common cohesion between them, some cohesive force. That cohesive force can be language, that cohesive force can be culture, that cohesive force sometimes is religion, that cohesive force can be the territorial one, कि we are bound with this territory like United States of America and India. So that is called the nation. You'll see that after Napoleon was taken down at the War of Nations in Leipzig, 1813, Battle of Waterloo, 1814. So, sorry, 1815. So, in both these battles, Napoleon was defeated. And after the defeat of Napoleon, the Austrian Prime Minister Clemens von Metternich, ये थोड़ा सा background जानना आपको जरूरी है. That's why we are discussing less questions in more time. The reason I want to make it easy for you to understand this story. So Clemens von Metternich of Austria, he wanted to end this revolutionary fervor of Europe. जो French Revolution के बाद people, they got this tension, they got this aspirations among them that they can also make changes in the history or in the course of their region. उसके पहले माना जाता था कि people, these common people, they cannot interfere. उनको कुछ बोलने का नहीं है. When Battle of Panipat or Plassey or even Tarain and all these were fought, तो common people जाके इसमें interfere नहीं करते थे. They had no say कि पृथ्वीराज चौहान should rule or मोहम्मद गोरी should rule or हेमू should rule or लोधी और मुगल और कोई भी रूल करे. उनकी जिंदगी में वही कष्ट है. However, after French Revolution, आप ये जान लें कि our politics, our administrative system, our political system is the legacy of continuous revolution of Britain. वो ब्रिटेन के continuous revolution की legacy है. This voting system, democracy, rule of law types. And your political system or socio-political, social system mainly, and that part of political system, जो administrative नहीं है, which is everyday MLA, MP and your relation with them, are the legacy of French Revolution. After French Revolution, people openly started saying कि all kings are bad और ये तो होते ही corrupt हैं and they are only behind their money, they are not to serve us. तो इस तरीके के जो allegations लगते हैं, that starts of that very much settled in French Revolution. After French Revolution, people had this spirit कि these politicians, these kings, they are bad people and we should be able to rule the countries. हमारा इस country में rule नहीं, कम से कम दखल होना चाहिए. And this give aspirations to people. Clemens von Metternich has made a quadruple alliance. एक quadruple alliance बना. We are talking about Vienna Congress 1815. 1815 की Vienna Congress में Clemens von Metternich to stop these spirits, इन सारी spirits को stop करने के लिए. He was a landlord, Prime Minister of Austria. One of his statement, वैसे तो ये भी question हो सकता है, but it will be a difficult one. He says the person who lived his life before 1789, before French Revolution. Sorry, a person who did not live his life before 1789. A person who did not live his life before French Revolution cannot imagine how calm the life was. कितना सुकून भरा जीवन था 1789 के पहले. It is impossible to even imagine. The reason is that he was a politician, he was the one who was administering the country. For them, it was only the rural regions where they go on their cart, वो अपनी बग्घी में अपने उसमें रथ में जाते थे. And then they used to have a free hand in the matters of their countries. However, after 1789 or after French Revolution, the revolutionary forces were unleashed. लोग बात बात पे गुस्सा गाली देने लगे. सोशल मीडिया एज इज वन सच. अब आप देखो उद्धव ठाकरे, ही एंड क्या नाम है उसका, अर्नब गोस्वामी, दे आर रेसलिंग इट आउट. ओपनली वी नो इट्स नॉट एनी, ना वो कोई केस झूठा है, और अर्नब गोस्वामी जो कह रहे हैं वो भी बात सही नहीं है, उद्धव ठाकरे कह रहे हैं वो भी बात सही. बट दिस सोशल मीडिया हैज गिवन दिस स्ट्रेंथ, दिस अनरेस्ट. अब बिफोर दिस सोशल मीडिया, इफ दैट हीरो सुशांत सिंह वुड हैव डाइड, तो बात आई गई कितने मर गए यार. दिव्या भारती डाइड, इवन पॉलिटिशियंस लाइक श्यामा प्रसाद मुखर्जी, दीनदयाल उपाध्याय, दे डाइड. कुछ नहीं हुआ. बट दिस इज द अनरेस्ट ऑफ सोशल. सबको लिखना है, कुछ में लिख दिया मर्डर, हैशटैग मर्डर. सो लाइकवाइज दिस फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन ऑल्सो अनलीज्ड, ऑल्सो मेड पीपल स्टेक होल्डर्स ऑफ देयर पॉलिटिक्स. टू स्टॉप दिस, quadruple alliance was made by Clemens von Metternich in 1815, the Congress of Vienna. It had 4 countries, later 5. One is Britain, Prussia, Austria, Russia, and the 5th was added later. Castle Renault से ऐड करा लिया. It was France. So when these 5 countries were formed, although technically quadruple alliance, but countries were 5. And these 5 countries, what they have started stopping, what they have started controlling, they have started controlling the people who think they should not be ruled by empire, but they should be ruled homogeneously. They should have their homogeneous nation, group of people, and they should rule themselves. German speaking people, ये जो German speaking mass है, they started thinking, or they started moving towards their own country, which will be known as Deutschland. Deutschland means their own देश. देश को वो Deutsch बोलते हैं. Dutch भी German है, तो they call themselves देश. British have named them Dutch. So this Deutschland, or their Germany, should be ruled by themselves. Now see the country Austria. It has a great problem in it. If Germany becomes a reality, this Magyar, Czech, Slovak, Pole, Slav, Bulgar, these parts will rise into rebellion. अगर इंडिया में आ जाए, if India unfortunately this starts appearing, कि one language, one nation, एक लैंग्वेज एक नेशन का कंसेप्ट इंडिया पे बहुत भारी पड़ा. राजस्थानी, पंजाबी, बंगाली, हरियाणवी, अवधी, ब्रज, असमीज, उड़िया, सिर्फ बिहार के 3 पार्ट हो जाए, मगही, भोजपुरी एंड मैथिली. सो देयरफॉर इंडिया विल नेवर से दैट वन नेशन वन कंट्री लॉ इज राइट. हम तो बताएंगे एकता में अनेकता, एंड there must be multiple languages which can coexist. So therefore this Austria, it started telling, or it started imposing that this concept of nation is wrong. For time being, in 1815, even Prussia has accepted this. Prussia ने भी इसको accept कर लिया. But Prussia was largely German. It had very less of its population. Bohemia और ये सब जो हिस्सा है, Poles and all, they are very less. Prussia is majorly German. France was French. It was the success of France which gave the aspirations to these people. कि France एक country जो unite हो गया in one nation, and it has dominated the world so much that Metternich has said if France sneezes, Europe catches the cold. फ्रांस अगर छींकता है तो पूरे यूरोप को ठंड लगती है. That was the control this France, that was the power these French people have shown in last 25 years. So Germans, these are Italian city-states. Nice, Savoy, Piedmont, Sardinia, Venetia, Lombardy, Parma, Modena, Tuscany, then Papal States. Then there are two Sicilies. One is Sicily, another is Naples. So these were the Italian city-states. ये सब Italian city-states बिखरे हुए थे. Dominated largely by Austria. Austria used to directly rule Venetia and Lombardy. And these are the Habsburg dynasties which were placed in the various thrones of Parma, Modena, Tuscany. Italy was also ruled by a dynasty, or Piedmont, Sardinia was ruled by a dynasty of Victor Emmanuel. However, Italy was also fragmented into city-states. Italy भी city-states में fragmented. Italy wanted to rise, or many people in the Italy wanted to rise. You must have heard Giuseppe Mazzini has created Young Italy movement. Italian Risorgimento on the lines of Rinascimento. Rinascimento we know as Renaissance. Risorgimento. We are awake by Renaissance. 500 years have passed. We should now resurge. We should stand up again and make Italy. All these stories were formulated. कहानी आपने सुनी होंगी. एक वो मूवी आई थी ना जो हॉकी की, I do not know the name of states, I can only know the name of country. So likewise, there are various stories formulated. कि there is a bar in which man came, तो people have asked where are you from, तो एक ने कहा Venetia, एक ने कहा Lombardy, एक ने कहा Naples. Then one man came, तो people started asking where are you from, तो he says guess. तो कहते हैं तुम Venetia से आए हो, तुम Lombardy से आए हो, तुम इससे आए हो, तुम उससे. Then at the last he said I came from Italy. So Italy was also a linguistic group or linguistic nation. Likewise, these Poles in this region, their nation was ended 20 years back. 1795, their nation was partitioned between Prussia, Austria and Russia. But these Poles, they also rise in rebellions. There are Slavs, Serbs, Ottoman के अंडर पे, Ottoman और Austria के joint rule में. Slavs, especially these Serbs, they were rising in the revolt against Ottomans. And they wanted to have their united Slav nation. 100 years later, they will be successful to create Yugoslavia. With 3 empires के बीच, this is called the Eastern question. Russia, Austria and Ottomans. इनके बीच में छोटे-छोटे nations हैं. And France, it was also re-rising again. Risorgimento of France, where it wanted to change the dynasty. So in this background, the revolution of 1830 took place. In France, it was successful in ending the rule of Bourbon dynasty, Charles X, and starting a new dynasty, the dynasty of Orleans. King Louis Philippe came, 1830 to 48. In Austria, all these revolutions, these German mass, they started revolting, crushed by the forces of Austria, with some help of Prussia, although Prussia did not openly help, and that's why Prussia became the champion, the loved country of these German nations or nationalists. Then came these Italian city-states, crushed by Austria. This mass of countries, Slav countries, they rose, they were crushed by Ottomans, Austria jointly. However, one country was freed in this region. आपको पता नहीं याद रखना है कि नहीं, don't remember, but I am telling you. This was the Greece. The Greece was given independence. The reason is the internal politics that Greece was considered as the cradle of European civilization. So it was now the pride of Europeans. That's why you will see the first Olympic when it started by Pierre de Coubertin, the French. The first Olympics were not in France. the first Olympics were not in France. The first Olympics were in Greece. The reason was that Greece was considered as the cradle of civilization. So Greece को independence दे दी गई. Now let's come which country other get independence to the Catholic part of the Netherlands. The Catholic part of the Netherlands called Belgium, where the battleground of Waterloo was. So two countries, Netherlands and Belgium, has appeared. That is the revolutions of 1830. अब these people were fighting against empire. ये लोग empire के against लड़ रहे थे. Only two succeeded, Belgium and Greece, that also with the help of empires. Ottoman Empire को pressurize किया गया, especially by Russia and Britain also helped that. कि ठीक बात है यार, Christian country है, cradle of civilization, it should get independence. आगे बढ़ते हैं. 18 years more has passed. We come to 1848. Again the countries rose in rebellion. वैसे तो it's wrong to say exact, बिल्कुल ही गलत होगा, but this is the same year when Karl Marx have published his Communist Manifesto, one of the first major work of Marx. And in that only Marx, जब ये revolution शुरू हुए, तो the German revolutions, the Pole revolution, the Magyar revolution under Kossuth, the Slav revolutions, the Italian revolution. If you are Austria, just imagine the problems you have. Germans, Czechs, Slovaks, Poles, Magyars at your heart, Bulgars, Slavs, Italians, सब revolt कर रहे हैं. Now Austria is controlling every one of them. And this was the time when peasant also came out in the rebellion against Austria. If this would have been class तो बहुत मजा आता, आप भी कुछ पूछते, मैं भी बताता, but still, this was the time when peasants ran away when Austrian Empire have threatened the confiscation. जब Austrian Empire ने threaten किया कि the lands will be confiscated, तो peasants ran into countryside leaving the cities. So Marx have taken this lesson कि anyhow whatever happens, peasants are not reliable part or reliable foot soldiers of the revolution. And he took peasants out of the revolution. I hope you would have answered the guy or the person who has brought these peasants back into the socialist or communist revolution. He was the Chinese politician. Around 80 years later he will appear, Mao Zedong. चलो तो ऑस्ट्रिया की प्रॉब्लम समझ ले. रशिया, it has to control this Poles, these some of the Slavs. Not exactly, Russia is also a Slav country. Ottomans have to control these Slavs. तो फिर ये प्रॉब्लम शुरू. Even France, the rebellions appeared. France, they were again successful. Louis Philippe, the bourgeois king, was deposed 18 years later. And the second French Republic was declared. First was declared after murdering Louis XVI. Second French Republic was declared. It was from 1848. And 4 years later, the nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte, to reinstate French glory, will end the Second Republic and will start the Second Bonapartist Empire. तो सेकेंड रिपब्लिक तो 4 ही साल चलेगी, बट स्टिल द नेपोलियन, द नेफ्यू ऑफ नेपोलियन, नेपोलियन द थर्ड, लुई नेपोलियन बोनापार्ट, हैव कन्वर्टेड इन 52 द फ्रेंच रिपब्लिक इनटू फ्रेंच एम्पायर. ये सब कहानी आपको इसलिए बता रहा हूं बिकॉज आर टू क्वेश्चन हैव द कनेक्शन इन इट. बिना बैकग्राउंड के इट्स useless for me to read out the question. Then let's understand what was going on in Poland. So Poland was given some of the reforms by Russia, but not a hardcore country. Austria, the problem of Austria was so high that Austria has deposed the prime minister जो पिछले 30 साल से चल रहे थे. Clemens von Metternich in his old age was given in exile. फिर वो फ्रांस, ब्रिटेन, he moved everywhere. He met with young Queen Victoria. तो वो सब हुआ, बट ऑस्ट्रिया ऑल्सो सॉ अ चेंज इन इट्स किंगशिप. द लास्ट किंग ऑफ और लास्ट ग्रेट किंग ऑफ ऑस्ट्रिया, ही वॉज Franz Joseph. This man will sit over the decline of Austria. At last he will die in 1917. सब कुछ देख के अपनी कंट्री के सारे जब वो हो जाएंगे, then he will die. There is a story, some say he was cursed when he has killed around 150 monks. तो फ्रांस जोसेफ came to throne in 1848. तो ये ऑस्ट्रिया की भी प्रॉब्लम चल रही थी. Now let's come to our question. तो क्वेश्चन ये है कि यू हैव सीन टू रेवोल्यूशन, रेवोल्यूशन ऑफ 1830 एंड रेवोल्यूशन ऑफ 1848. इन बोथ देयर वाज अ फिलॉसफी कॉल्ड नेशनलिज्म. नेशनलिज्म एक फोर्स है. There are two forces of continuity and forces of change. There are some forces in our history or in our society which want to change its course. जैसे today when you will see the cultural nationalism of BJP. BJP का एक nationalism है जिसको हम कह सकते हैं cultural nationalism. Or you can go even far and call it religious revolution, but don't do that. Cultural nationalism. तो cultural nationalism today is force of change. आज कल्चरल रेवोल्यूशन फोर्स ऑफ चेंज है. इट वांट्स टू मेक चेंजेस इन सोसाइटी. वेयर एज द ओल्ड कांग्रेस नेशनलिज्म, टेरिटोरियल नेशनलिज्म, इंडिया में रहते हो इंडियन हो, कुछ और करने की जरूरत नहीं है. टेरिटोरियल नेशनलिज्म इज टुडे फोर्स ऑफ कंटिन्यूटी. ये कहता है कुछ चेंज मत करो. 100 years ago the concept of territorial change was itself a force of change. And the British Empire was force of continuity. तो एक force of change आता है. If it is successful, तो it after some time becomes force of continuity. फिर वो दूसरे से लड़ता है. If cultural nationalism of BJP succeeds today, 100 years later, perhaps a new force will come and will challenge it. शायद linguistic nationalism आए उसको challenge करे. उसी तरह this nationalism was challenging the empires of Europe. And these empires have seen, especially आप देखें German nationalism in north, Italian nationalism in south. These are the two of the strongest. 70 years later, a third nationalism will develop in Europe. That is the Slav nationalism. एक बात ध्यान से समझ लें. If you don't know this, you know nothing. Austria has lost two of its legs, 1870s. One is these German states in north, Italian states in south. 40 years later in 1910s, it was threatened to lose its third leg, the Slav leg in Eastern Europe. Eastern Europe की ये Slav leg भी Austria lose करने वाला था. And Austria did not wanted that. Austria wanted to stop that. And to stop that, Austria took the support of Prussia or Germany of that day. And Russia wanted this nationalism to succeed. Russia के stakes थे कि this Slav nationalism should succeed. Austria and Ottomans do not want it to succeed. So Austria and Ottomans sided with Germany and they ganged up against Russia. And Russia sided with France and Britain. So First World War is simply Austria stopping the third unification. That's why World War I started with the murder of Archduke Francis Ferdinand by the Pan-Slav movement in Sarajevo. Austria का प्रिंस था जिसको साराजेवो में गोली मार दी, which has started the World War I. So it is simply the two unifications have been done, the third is going to be done. Austria wanted to stop it. That is the simple start of World War I. आपको ये नहीं पता आप कितनी भी ये रेस और वो नेशनलिस्ट रेस और आर्म्स रेस वेल्थ पॉलिटिक्स करते रहें, इफ यू डोंट नो दैट हाउ द स्लाव नेशनलिज्म स्टार्टेड और स्लाव यूनिफिकेशन मूवमेंट स्टार्टेड वर्ल्ड वॉर I, you know nothing. Likewise, इस नेशनलिज्म के पहले दो नेशनलिज्म जो हुए वो पढ़ लेते हैं. नाउ दिस नेशनलिज्म in 1830 and 48 sided with liberalism. Means इस नेशनलिज्म को लगा कि बाई एजुकेशन, बाई पॉलिटिकल रिफॉर्म्स, बाई लिबर्टी, बाई डेमोक्रेसी, बाई इक्वालिटी टू एवरीवन, बाई फ्रेटर्निटी हम ये कर लेंगे. जैसे आप देखें कि देयर वाज अ टाइम व्हेन इंडियंस वांटेड टू एंड द करप्ट रेजीम ऑफ कांग्रेस. बात है 2011 की, 2011. अन्ना हजारे, केजरीवाल, किरण बेदी, वीके सिंह, दे ऑल सैट इन रामलीला मैदान एंड स्टार्टेड देयर, जो भी वो करते हैं भूखे रह के, वो क्या कहते हैं उसे, फास्ट एंड ऑल. इट वॉज, वी वर सीइंग द सॉल्यूशन ऑफ करप्शन इन लिबरलिज्म, कि हम कर लेंगे इसे, वी विल बी एबल टू डू इट, वी विल गिव एनलाइटनमेंट टू पीपल, वी विल ब्रिंग पीपल टुगेदर, हम सब कुछ करेंगे एंड वी विल बी एबल टू एंड दिस करप्शन. आप देखें, इट डिड नॉट सक्सीड, करप्शन खत्म नहीं कर पाया. इफ द करप्ट गवर्नमेंट ऑफ कांग्रेस वॉज टेकन डाउन, इट वॉज टेकन डाउन नॉट बाई दैट romantic revolutions, they were taken down by a rival party. तो लोहे को लोहा काटता है. These empires, they could not be defeated by your, क्या कहते हैं, रोड पे सत्याग्रह. They could not be defeated by your liberalism call for democracy. They could not be defeated by your call of civil rights. इन एम्पायर्स ने आपका नेशन नहीं बनने दिया. दे हैव डिफीटेड यू अगेन इन 1848. एवरी पीपल वेंट टू रोड. जैसे जर्मनी का जो आप फ्लैग देखते हैं, रेड, ब्लैक एंड गोल्डन, दैट फ्लैग फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम वाज गिवन इन 1830 कि हम जर्मन का स्टेट बनाए. इट्स ओनली आफ्टर द फॉल ऑफ, क्या कहते हैं इसे, अडोल्फ हिटलर, कोनराड एडिनोर हैज adopted this flag, or this flag was adopted as the flag of West Germany, बाद में of the United Germany. So therefore, ये सब फीलिंग उनके 1830, 1848 के बीच में, in these 20 years they had this feeling. Their nationalism sided with liberalism. वो liberalism से साइड किया. However, it was a failure. ये फेल हुआ. It could not succeed. Now, when this nationalism could not succeed with liberalism, we'll see what it has done. North of Germany, the kingdom of Prussia, a young kingdom तो क्या ही थी? It was a part of Holy Roman Empire. In 1701, they asked permission from Austrian Habsburg Emperor to call themselves King of Prussia, नहीं King in Prussia, that they are ruling the territories outside Holy Roman Empire. They were simply electors, landlords of Austrian Emperor. However, in last 150 years, Prussia has increased its power. पहले Frederick Wilhelm War of Austrian Succession, then 7 years war, then Napoleonic War. Although Napoleon has defeated them, but they have brought their empire back. In 1815, they have started developing railways. 1815 में तो railways आई नहीं थी. They have started developing railways after that. They have started binding the northern kingdom with their own territory by economic alliances. You must have heard the name of Zollverein. Zollverein का आपने नाम सुना होगा. भैया लिखते चलें. History is not never read की कहानी सुना रहा हूं आप. It's a long story. तो Prussia has tied the North German countries or North German kingdoms. Austria wanted to keep them divided. जो जर्मन बंड बना था बाद में, जर्मन कन्फेडरेशन, that was Austria wanted these countries, these kingdoms should not come together. Prussia wanted to make an alliance to counter Austria. This is in history is called the German dualism. The rivalry between Prussia and Austria is called the German dualism. तो German dualism शुरू हो गया. In South, these Italian states, they also were fed up of Austria. However, their power was, their martial tendencies was not such कि any kingdom could counter Austria. Austria को कोई counter कर नहीं पाता था. Now, let's come to our question back. This nationalism and liberalism, which allied for last 20 years, it understood that it is impossible to defeat countries like Russia, Austria, France. ये ऐसे डिफीट होंगी नहीं. आर सिविल राइट्स आर सत्याग्रह. जैसे हमारी हिस्ट्री का भी एक ऑलमोस्ट मिसकंसेप्शन है दैट वी हैव डिफीटेड ब्रिटिश एम्पायर विद द फोर्सेस ऑफ लिबरलिज्म. हमने सत्याग्रह करके, कांग्रेस पार्टी बना के, सिविल राइट्स की डिमांड करके, बाय डूइंग ऑल दिस वी एंडेड ब्रिटिश एम्पायर. इट्स अ मिसनॉमर. Even in our case, the nationalism and liberalism could only succeed with the alliance of militarism. When Adolf Hitler, Subhash Chandra Bose, Netaji, Japan, they all came together and जब उन्होंने ब्रिटिश को दौड़ा दौड़ा के मारना शुरू किया, and after World War II, when the army itself got hostile, then British thought it's better to leave India. It's too costly to control it. ये बात सही है कि प्रेजेंस ऑफ पॉलिटिक्स एंड कांग्रेस एंड ऑल मेड दिस प्रोसेस स्मूथ. उन्हें पता था एग्जैक्टली कैसे जाना है. इंस्टेड ऑफ गिविंग पावर टू 10 पीपल एंड प्रिपेयरिंग इंडिया फॉर सिविल वॉर, अंत में वो खैर उसे क्या कहते हैं करके ही गए बवाल एक. बट स्टिल आर नेशनलिज्म एंड लिबरलिज्म डिड नॉट वॉन ऑन इट्स ओन. इट हैज टू साइड विद मिलिटरिज्म. नेताजी बोस का कहना था कि इट्स नॉट दैट सिंपली और ऑल दीज थिंग्स विल गोइंग टू गिव यू इंडिपेंडेंस. ब्रिटिश मिलिटरिज्म से ही उसे जीता जा सकता है. द लेसन विच यू शुड हैव टेकन फ्रॉम इटालियन एंड जर्मन यूनिफिकेशन एंड इवन स्लाव यूनिफिकेशन इटसेल्फ. स्लाव यूनिफिकेशन भी वर्ल्ड वॉर 1 के बाद हुआ था. इंडियन यूनिफिकेशन वर्ल्ड वॉर 2 के बाद हुआ. द रीजन इज यू हैव टू end the oppressive, the superpower which is sitting on your throat. किसी को तो उसे हराना ही पड़ेगा. So therefore after 1848, कहानी लंबी है. फ्रैंकफर्ट वॉर पार्लियामेंट 1845, all these kingdoms came together, North German kingdoms. They have framed a constitution and invited King of Prussia Frederick William on the throne of United Germany. He declined. उसने मना कर दिया. He said, I am not going to put a throne on myself which comes from gutter. गटर से आया हुआ थ्रोन अपने सिर पर नहीं रख लूंगा. I am not as fool as British kings who are sitting over a monarchy which makes them simply a laughing stock. मैं वैसा किंग नहीं बनना चाहता हूं जैसे ब्रिटिश किंग है कि पार्लियामेंट इज डूइंग एवरीथिंग, वो खाली सिग्नेचर करने आते हैं. लास्ट टाइम अ ब्रिटिश किंग अटेंडेड द पार्लियामेंट वाज 1781, जॉर्ज द थर्ड. उसके बाद एक बार क्वीन एलिजाबेथ 2013 में उन्होंने अटेंड किया. 1781 के बाद फर्स्ट किंग टू अटेंड द पार्लियामेंट वाज 2012. इतना दूर है. सो दैट्स द टाइप ऑफ लॉस ऑफ पावर ब्रिटिश किंग हैव सीन. तो प्रशा डिड नॉट एक्सेप्टेड दैट थ्रोन विच वॉज गिवन टू इट बाई लिबरलिज्म. जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, सिविल राइट्स और सफरेज, यूनिवर्सल सफरेज, ये सब वाला थ्रोन इन्होंने नहीं एक्सेप्ट किया. ही सेड इट्स बेटर कि ये यूनाइटेड डिवाइडेड ही रहे. हाउएवर आफ्टर 1848 रेवोल्यूशंस, 1848 के रेवोल्यूशंस के बाद प्रशा हैज openly sided with this forces of liberalism or started to unify the Germany or started its work. एक humiliation of Olmütz हुआ था where they have called the joint meeting. All the countries wanted to join it but the Austrian forces came. और ये प्रशा को वापस जाना पड़ा. तो प्रशा was even not as strong. When Austria calls its commission और ऑस्ट्रिया जब अपनी मीटिंग बुलाती थी, एक इवेंट हुआ था, प्रशा हैज कॉल्ड एंड ऑस्ट्रिया हैज कॉल्ड, तो मेजॉरिटी ऑफ कंट्रीज प्रिफर्ड ऑस्ट्रिया. तो still Austria was very powerful, but Prussia was rising its power with the help of its economy, with the help of that Zollverein economic German economic union, with the help of spreading railway lines, improving its own military. And when these all started, this nationalism and liberalism in case of Germany sided with militarism of Prussia. In case of Italy, the nationalism and liberalism sided with militarism of Piedmont, Sardinia. तो कहानी यह है कि यू कैनॉट एंड एन ऑपरेसिव. आपके गली में कोई गुंडा है तो ओनली योर लिबरलिज्म, ओनली योर एनलाइटनमेंट कैनॉट स्टॉप इट. आप पुलिस को फोन करेंगे कि भाई ऐसा है, कम एंड बीट हिम और एटलीस्ट टेक हिम विद यू. एंड व्हेन ही गोज, तब आपके ऊपर है कि हाउ यू विल सेट योर कॉलोनी. आप फिर उसको कैसे करेंगे, एक अगला गुंडा अपना बुलाएंगे और वॉट एवर. बट फर्स्ट यू हैव टू डिफीट. तो दीज नेशंस, they wanted to defeat the empires, and the empire which both of them could defeat was of Austria, and therefore the German and Italian unification could succeed. तो 1850 to 71 में ये हो गया. Nationalism, liberalism and militarism, they allied to defeat their common enemy, जो कि ऑस्ट्रिया था. That's why Austria is the biggest casualty of German and Italian unification. After which Austria was overconscious. The consciousness which it has applied to the Eastern Europe, the Balkans in 1913 and 14. 1913-14 में यही consciousness कि भाई 2 बार हार चुके हैं. 2 times we have lost our empires. In Germany and Italy, we are not ready to give up the empire in Balkans, and that's why World War I started in Balkans. As Bismarck has predicted 20 years ago, that there will be a great war over something foolish in Balkans. The reason in Balkans is that 3 empires were involved: Ottomans, Austrians and Russians. And these 3 empires claiming influence over entire of the region, where every is the enemy of other 2. Austria is the enemy of Russia and Ottomans. Ottoman is the enemy of Austria. Russia is the enemy of Austria and Ottomans. तो ये तीनों एक दूसरे के enemy हैं, and that's why Balkans is known as the Eastern Question. To solve this Eastern Question, the Berlin Conference of 1878 was called, जहां पे सर्बिया और बुल्गारिया को इंडिपेंडेंट किया गया. सर्बिया वाज गिवन, सॉरी नॉट सर्बिया, बोस्निया एंड हर्जेगोविना वाज गिवन टू ऑस्ट्रिया और उनका जोन ऑफ इन्फ्लुएंस हुआ. तो दिस इज कॉल्ड द बर्लिन कॉन्फ्रेंस टू सॉल्व द ईस्टर्न क्वेश्चन, व्हाट शुड हैपन इन बाल्कन्स. वो वर्ल्ड वॉर 1 के टाइम कभी देखेंगे. अभी तो आप ये समझ लें, नेशनलिज्म, लिबरलिज्म एंड मिलिटरिज्म. If you think World War I starts with 20th century, so it's wrong. World War I has its deep roots in 1850s. After this revolutions, the ground was set for a great war. That's why World War I is called the war to end all wars. इसलिए World War I को कहते हैं a war to end all wars. Because these are so many issues. इतने issues आप अभी मैं देख रहा हूँ, अभी तो इसमें मैंने ठीक से और बताया भी नहीं. I am only discussing the 20 years politics. कि this मेस ऑफ यूरोपियन पॉलिटिक्स. इतनी लड़ाई हो गई, जैसे आपके मोहल्ले में एवरी डे यू फाइट. वो गरीबों का भी आपने मोहल्ला स्लम देखा होगा ना, एवरी डे दे फाइट. रोज इनकी उनसे लड़ाई, उनकी इनसे लड़ाई, उसने उसके घर कूड़ा फेंक दिया, ही थ्रो दैट. तो एक दिन छुट्टी के दिन, दिवाली दशहरा में आप अपने रिश्तेदारों को बुलाते हैं. यू कॉल योर रिलेटिव्स कि भाई आज दिवाली यहां मनाना, ये प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करनी. तो यू हैव कॉल्ड योर रिलेटिव्स, दे हैव कॉल्ड देयर रिलेटिव, थर्ड हैज कॉल्ड देयर रिलेटिव, फोर्थ हैज कॉल्ड देयर रिलेटिव, फिफ्थ हैज कॉल्ड देयर रिलेटिव. तो होता भैया इस दिन आज अब ये झंझट खत्म ही करो. सो लाइक वाइज वर्ल्ड वॉर वन वॉज सच दिवाली हॉलीडेज वेयर ऑल द कंट्रीज केम टुगेदर टू एंड इट फॉर एवर. कि इस बवाल को यार खत्म किया जाए. एनफ ऑफ ऑल दिस. एक रोज रोज की लड़ाई नहीं चलेगी. दैट्स व्हाई इट इज कॉल्ड द वॉर टू एंड ऑल वॉर्स. एंड अ क्वेश्चन विच आई डोंट थिंक आई विल गिव, I want you to write that question. अगर आपको लिखना हो तो आप उसको लिख लें. You can send your answers. सर के पास भेज दीजिएगा तो I'll see that. If World War I was war to end all wars. If World War I was war to end all wars. If World War I was war to end all wars. The Peace of Paris was to end all peace. If World War I was war to end all wars, Peace of Paris was peace to end all peace. इसका क्या मतलब है? इसके लिए World War I की थोड़ी समझ चाहिए, which we will try to see कि how much we can give. आगे देखते हैं. तो the question was, in Europe the characteristic years between 1850 and 70 was a close alliance between liberalism and militarism. So it was nationalism and liberalism which allied. इसमें nationalism नहीं है. I thought कि you will understand. That's why nationalism was willfully taken away. तो nationalism and liberalism allied with militarism. आप अंत में आपको ये समझना चाहिए, at the end of it, 1871, when the United Germany was made, when this United Germany was made a great state, एक यूनाइटेड जर्मनी बन गया, and a united Italy was made. All the Nice and Savoy were given to. अभी नीस में तो हमला भी हुआ एक. So this Nice and Savoy, sorry, रेड लाइन ज्यादा इधर आ गई. This Nice and Savoy, they were all obviously given to France. However, a unified Italy was also made. So after this unified Germany and unified Italy, these empires, they have created the nation. These militaristic empire, they have created the nations in both the cases. However, they have betrayed the liberalism. Liberalism को इन्होंने betray कर दिया. Neither political reforms were set, nor a lot of civil rights were given. No universal suffrage. Still, king remains the totalitarian power. Still, parliament is only of the name, as you will see in 1905, Duma was created. तो ये सिर्फ नाम दाम के रिफॉर्म्स हुए. नो रियल रिफॉर्म्स वर गिवन. पीपल फ्रॉम वन एम्पायर एंटर्ड द अनदर एम्पायर. अर्लियर दे वर इन द फ्रेगमेंटेड किंगडम्स ऑफ जर्मन बंड विच वॉज रेमिनेंट ऑफ होली रोमन एम्पायर डोमिनेटेड बाय ऑस्ट्रिया. नाउ दे आर रूल्ड बाय द प्रशा. पीडमोंट सार्डिनिया इज नाउ द रूलर ऑफ इटली. तो विक्टर इमैनुअल was not serving the Italian unification. Bismarck was not serving the German unification. They were serving their own empires. लिख ले भाई question. Victor Emmanuel and Otto von Bismarck were not serving their nationalisms, but their empires. ये अपनी नेशनलिज्म को सर्व नहीं कर रहे थे. बिस्मार्क वाज नॉट सर्विंग जर्मन नेशनलिज्म कि जर्मनी एक कंट्री होगा, फिर ये होगा, फिर वो होगा. हिज मेन आइडिया वाज कि प्रशा शुड डोमिनेट दीज कंट्रीज रादर देन ऑस्ट्रिया. ऑस्ट्रिया को निकाल के हरा के बाहर कर दिया. प्रशा इज रूलिंग दीज किंगडम्स एंड मोर टोटली. जैसे ज्यादा अकलमंद लोग जो होते हैं, मोर वेरी इंटेलिजेंट पीपल, दे फाइंड देमसेल्फ इन ट्रबल. कहावत है गांव में, विच आई कैन नॉट से हियर. सो वेरी इंटेलिजेंट पीपल, दे मर्डर लुई 16 ओनली टू ब्रिंग नेपोलियन बोनापार्ट. वो लुई 16 को मारते हैं नेपोलियन बोनापार्ट को लाने के लिए. वो आसमान से गिरते और फिर खजूर का जो भी है. सो दे इनवाइट अ बिगर इविल. आई एम नॉट सेइंग प्रशा इज एन इविल. आई एम सिंपली सेइंग दैट ending one empire, they move to another empire. And that empire do not give them. However, later Prussia has created one of the first welfare state. काफी यूनिवर्सल हेल्थ केयर और ये सब वर्ल्ड वॉर 1 के पहले बनाई थी प्रशा. तो इट वॉज टू देयर क्रेडिट. ऐसा नहीं है कि वो सिंपली एक ब्रूटल एम्पायर थे. पिडमोंट. सो नेशनलिज्म एंड लिबरलिज्म allied with militarism. However, nationalism and militarism later betrayed the liberalism. That's why Giuseppe Mazzini has said that Garibaldi has betrayed the Italian nationalism. गैरीबाल्डी ने इटालियन नेशनलिज्म को बिट्राई किया, रिसॉर्जिमेंटो को बिट्राई किया. द रीजन इज ही हैज सरेंडर्ड हिमसेल्फ टू विक्टर इमैनुअल. जो क्वेश्चन आपको लिखा है ना, विक्टर इमैनुअल एंड ऑटो वॉन बिस्मार्क वर सर्विंग देयर नेशनल नॉट नेशनलिज्म बट देयर एम्पायर, उसमें विक्टर इमैनुअल काट के कर ले काउंट कावूर. काउंट कावूर एंड ऑटो वॉन बिस्मार्क वर सर्विंग देयर नेशंस. तो आई थिंक दिस इज क्वेश्चन नंबर 1 which you have the idea about. This is what you have to write there. लिखने को तो बहुत कुछ है, पर पहले से वो समझें. I have seen many a time in a rhetorical way people say content is not important, writing style is. Believe me, it's not true according to me. Content is 90% of the answer. जब आपको ये कहानी नहीं पता होगी, I bet you bring a person who know how to write answer without knowing this story, और वो आंसर लिख के दिखा दे. And I can show you the person, and I am the one who don't know how to write the answers exactly. मेरे को ज्यादा नहीं आइडिया उस बात का. However, he will write a better answer. So never ever doubt the theory part. Never ever doubt the concepts. They are the only ones which will help you. Second question देखें, अब आगे इसी के कंटिन्यूएशन है क्वेश्चंस. The German Empire was created more by coal and iron than by blood and iron. तो पहले तो blood and iron समझ लें. What is blood and iron? So the year was 1848. Year was 1848. एक सेकेंड इसको come back to 1848. This was the time when Prussia was trying to break the domination of Austria. Italian states का तो कहना ही क्या, they were this Venetia, Lombardy were under Austrian Empire. Parma, Modena, Tuscany were controlled by the Habsburg dynasties. Naples and Sicily was controlled by Bourbon dynasty. So on. Piedmont, Sardinia was a country. ऊपर एक कॉर्सिका तो फ्रांस रूल कर ही रहा है. Now, first let's see कि what do you mean by blood and iron? Blood and iron से आपका क्या मतलब है? Then I'll explain coal and iron. तो iron willed, Ghiyasuddin Balban was called iron willed sultan. Vallabh Bhai Patel was called the Iron Man of India. Bismarck had the policy of blood and iron. तो ये आयरन जगह जगह क्यों है? Why this iron at various places? आयरन यहां पे मतलब है वेपन्स से. तो anywhere where iron is used, it means that person do not falls into ideological debates and traps. जैसे आई एम अ न्यू डीजी ऑफ पुलिस हु सेंट टू, और मैं एक दरोगा एसपी जो भी हूं, एक पुलिस मैन हूं, हु सेंट टू अ ट्रबल्ड रीजन वेयर पीपल आर फाइटिंग, वेयर राइट्स आर. तो आई हैव टू ऑप्शन. एक तो जाऊं मैं जगह जगह कॉलोनीज में एंड आई आस्क पीपल कि भैया क्यों दंगा कर रहे हो, व्हाट इज द प्रॉब्लम, व्हाई आर यू राइटिंग. तो कोई कहेगा मेरे ये प्रॉब्लम है एंड वी आर राइटिंग अगेंस्ट दैट ग्रुप. तो आई ट्राई टू पैसिफाई, आई कॉल द ऑल द स्टेक होल्डर्स, बड़े बड़े उनको बुलाऊंगा जो कॉलोनी के बड़े लोग हैं, एंड देन आई आस्क टू, और आई परसुएड देम टू कम टू अ ट्रूस, एक दोस्ती पे आ जाए. एक तो ये तरीका है, द प्रोसेस ऑफ नेहरू, प्रोसेस ऑफ ग्लैडस्टोन एंड ऑफ मेनी अदर पीपल. दूसरा तरीका है कि आई सेंट अ व्हीकल, एक व्हीकल भेजूं विद लाउड स्पीकर एंड आई अनाउंस कि जो भी बाहर दिख गया, इफ यू आर कमिंग आउट ऑफ योर हाउस, टेल योर पेरेंट्स, टेल योर फैमिली दैट यू आर नॉट गोइंग टू कम अगेन. आप वापस घर आओगे नहीं. कम आउट एट योर ओन रिस्क. इफ समवन कम्स टू टेल मी इन पुलिस स्टेशन कि सर यहां दंगा होने वाला है, तो आई ग्रैब हिम फ्रॉम द कॉलर एंड आई पुट हिम इन द जेल. पहले बता तुझे पता कैसे लगा? तो ही विल से आई एम इन द कॉन्टेक्ट ऑफ दीज. तो जो भी मेरे को दिखेगा उसको पीटना. इट मीन्स, और It's not that you are simply doing violence. It means you know that ultimately force is needed to solve the issue. चाहे जूनागढ़ हो, चाहे कश्मीर हो, चाहे हैदराबाद हो, अल्टीमेटली वी नीडेड द फोर्स. अल्टीमेटली डिफीट करना पड़ा. गियासुद्दीन बलबन, he has annihilated Turkey Chahalgani, started Sajda Paibos Zumbos. He has made the defense lines against the Mongols. He is the one who solved all the questions with his iron will, with the weapon. मार के पीट के उसने प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करवाई. So therefore, blood and iron is that how first Prussia, I hope you all know, 1864, Prussia and Austria together defeated Danish kingdom, Denmark, for Schleswig and Holstein. It's called the Danish War. Later, over the issue of management of Schleswig-Holstein, it asked Austria to leave. कहा गया ऑस्ट्रिया से यहां से जाओ. अच्छा, Prussia has made this Danish War as an issue of German pride. जब डेनमार्क स्लेशविग-होल्स्टीन क्लेम करने लगा, तो Prussia had made it the matter of prestige. I hope you all have a bit of idea for this. तो जब डेनमार्क ने स्लेशविग-होल्स्टीन की 2 डचीज क्लेम करी, तो Prussia had made it the prestige of German pride. यार जर्मन पे उन्होंने प्राइड पे अटैक किया. तो ऑस्ट्रिया एंड Prussia टुगेदर हैज डिफीटेड डेनमार्क. डेनमार्क हैड नो चांस. डेनमार्क को डिफीट किया, एंड एज द डेनमार्क वाज डिफीटेड, Prussia started asking Austria कि now you leave from here, I'll control both the duchies. और तय तो ये हुआ था कि one duchy Schleswig will be controlled by Prussia, Holstein will be controlled by Austria. तो ऑस्ट्रिया को ह्यूमिलिएट किया गया. तो दिस ह्यूमिलिएशन ऑफ ऑस्ट्रिया, it started the second war of German unification called Austro-Prussian War. Austro-Prussian War. And as Austro-Prussian War was won by Austria, काफी swift war था. It was under the leadership or under the generalship of Helmut von Moltke. इंटरेस्टिंग सी स्टोरी है, लंबी कहानी नहीं बताऊंगा. द अपग्रेड ऑफ फ्यूडलिज्म. फ्यूडलिज्म का जो अपग्रेड है, फ्यूडलिज्म का मतलब होता है एवरीथिंग बाय योर फैमिली प्रेस्टीज. अपग्रेड ऑफ फ्यूडलिज्म वाज ब्यूरोक्रेसी, जो आज भी हमारे यहां चल रही है. आफ्टर नेपोलियनिक विक्ट्रीज ओवर प्रशा ने उस ह्यूमिलिएशन के बाद चेंज लाया अपने, एंड दे हैव ब्रॉट एन अपग्रेड ऑफ ब्यूरोक्रेसी which they have named Auftrags tactic, which American army has adopted in 2011. It is so visionary in its nature. India will adopt it somewhere in 23rd century. So Auftrags tactic is upgrade of bureaucracy, where the command do not flow. कोई ये नहीं फोन करके डीएम से कहेगा ये कर देना, ये योजना चला दो, और go and control this region. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. You will be given the mission and you have to decide. That's called the mission based tactics. Bureaucracy command based होती है, mission based कि you are given a mission and you have to control that mission. Then missions will be broken into smaller part. You will delegate your mission. At the end, the man at that place will decide what is the best to do. हम ये कर नहीं सकते. डीएम को हम पैसे दे दें, we give money to DM and we say कि bring poverty 5 points low. सब पैसे तो डीएम ही खा जाएगा. आपके पास वो तरीका ही नहीं है कंट्रोल करने का. तो अभी ऑफ्ट्राक्स टैक्टिक इज अ डिस्टेंट ड्रीम. इवन इन आर्मी ऑफ्ट्राक्स टैक्टिक इज नॉट यूज्ड जनरली. किसी एक खास ऑपरेशन के लिए यूज हो जाए तो हो जाए. तो आफ्टर दैट Prussia हैज स्टार्टेड सक्सीडिंग, एंड सक्सेस ऑफ जर्मनी इन वर्ल्ड वॉर 1, 5 साल तक अकेला कंट्री इतनों से लड़ गया. सक्सेस ऑफ एडोल्फ हिटलर is not the success of Hitler or Kaiser Wilhelm. It is the success of this Prussian military aristocracy which has devised the Auftrags tactic, जिसने Auftrags tactic devise करी थी. तो ऑस्ट्रिया was swiftly defeated. 6 साल 8 साल पहले ऑस्ट्रिया was also defeated with the hands of France. वो Italian unification अभी हम पढ़ नहीं रहे. After the defeat of Austria in this war, Austria has subsided from the politics. North German unification happened. These countries were under the influence of France. France will not allow the influence of any other countries over these German states. जैसे यहां पर आप देखेंगे in the border of France there were two countries or two kingdoms called Alsace and Lorraine, which presently are in France. France का ऐसे आप मैप देखोगे तो हल्का से ऊपर से ये उठा हुआ है. तो these are Alsace and Lorraine, the German speaking places taken by France. And various of the kingdoms, जैसे एक country आप सुनेंगे Luxembourg, which is at the border of France. It is only a country today because it was not won by Prussia during 1871 war. ये फोर्ट था जिसको प्रशा ने नहीं जीता, नेगोशिएशन में नहीं मिला, तो टुडे इट्स अ सेपरेट कंट्री. तो इन यूरोप यू विल सी वेरियस स्मॉल कंट्रीज which were not won in those times of anarchy and kingdoms. अब इनको जीतना, तो डेमोक्रेसी का जमाना, मोनाको, लिख्टनस्टीन, लग्जमबर्ग, there are small countries which are remnant. ना ये जीत पाए ना वो जीत पाए, बीच में छोटी सी देश बच गया, एक शहर करोल बाग के साइज. So Austro-Prussian War, Austria was defeated. France was at two places. France was controlling these South German states, and France was also saving the Pope from any revolutions. 1848 में गैरीबाल्डी has reached Rome. तो गैरीबाल्डी को रोम से भगाया फ्रेंच फोर्सेस ने. फ्रांस, लुई नेपोलियन, who was a Christian king, Catholic king. तो लुई नेपोलियन gave protection to Pope. नॉर्थ में इटली यूनिफाई हो गया था. After pact of Plombiers and all, Italy was unified. South, Garibaldi has won two Sicilies and later surrendered it to North Italy. So only papal states were remained. And Piedmont, Sardinia could not have defeated France. France को नहीं defeat कर पाते. Prussia, it has won northern Germany, could not win this south because France is at the roadblock. France will not allow. अब जैसे China, if it starts winning म्यांमार, बर्मा, एक ही है बर्मा, म्यांमार, लाओस, कंबोडिया, वियतनाम, इंडो चाइना, अगर चाइना जीतने लग जाए तो इंडिया विल हैव ग्रेट प्रॉब्लम्स विद दैट. इफ टुमारो चाइना क्लेम्स दैट इट हैज वन भूटान एंड नेपाल, तो इंडिया विल नॉट अलाउ दिस. इंडिया अलाउ नहीं करेगा. सो देयरफॉर फ्रांस विल नेवर अलाउ प्रशा मूविंग साउथवर्ड्स. फॉर दिस बिस्मार्क हैज डिवाइज्ड एन इशू दैट वाज कॉल्ड द एम्स टेलीग्राम. एक स्पेनिश वॉर ऑफ सक्सेशन था, स्पेनिश स्ट्रगल फॉर सक्सेशन. फ्रांस वांटेड कि प्रशा शुड नॉट क्लेम इट. लंबी कहानी है. सैलिक लॉ चलता था यूरोप में. इन सैलिक लॉ थ्रोन ऑलवेज गोज टू मेल. ब्रिटेन में तो ऐसा नहीं था सैलिक लॉ, बट थ्रोन ऑलवेज गोज टू मेल. एंड देयरफॉर फ्रांस वांटेड कि अच्छा फीमेल्स जब फैमिली में होती तो इट गोज टू कजन पे जाता था और किसी और कजन पे चला जाएगा. And in those days of intermarriage, everyone was each other's cousin. He's the elder son of Frederick William, सब तो Frederick William ही है. He was married to the eldest daughter of Victoria की जो eldest daughter है. Kaiser Wilhelm II, who fought World War. World War I was a type of internecine war. There were 10 cousins fighting against each other. So it was the days of intermarriage. France wanted Prussia not to claim the throne of Spain. Prussia also did not wanted that, but एक telegram भेजा गया which Bismarck has edited and published it in media. The tone of that telegram ऐसे edit किया गया कि it thought derogatory to France. Louis Napoleon, who wanted to revive France as it was under Napoleon, वो नेपोलियन के दिनों को ताजा करना चाहते थे, तो Louis Napoleon has declared war on Prussia. That is called 1870 Franco-Prussian War. Franco-Prussian War. In this war, France moved, Prussian armies moved south and then took the southward and cut the entire French army. पूरी French army की supply को काट दिया. It was such a great strategy of Moltke that he understood कि today wars will not be fought on battlefield. Army को encircle कर लो, सप्लाई काट दो, they will surrender. And then Germany moved inward into the France, defeated Louis Napoleon. There is a famous photo That old Louis Napoleon on a bench sitting with Bismarck. Bismarck की भी पूरी sympathy थी. Bismarck gave him all the respect. France was defeated, and all these countries, they had no choice but to join Prussia. And such a great power was created on the borders of France, which will attack France twice in next few decades. इस प्रशा ने जर्मनी, यूनाइटेड जर्मनी हैज पनिश्ड फ्रांस थ्राइस. जर्मन यूनिफिकेशन, वर्ल्ड वॉर 1, वर्ल्ड वॉर 2. इसीलिए फ्रांस इज द बिगेस्ट कैजुअलिटी. ऑल्दो इन शॉर्ट टर्म जर्मन यूनिफिकेशन हैज ended the dominance of Austria, the true loser of German unification was France. World War 1 देख लें, World War 2 देख लें. So you also should write this कि the biggest loser of German unification seems to be Austria, but ultimately proved to be France. लगता ऑस्ट्रिया है, ये प्रतीत होता है कि ऑस्ट्रिया सबसे बड़ा लूजर है, बट इन रियलिटी द लूजर was proved to be France. This is the policy of blood and iron. But policy of iron and coal देखें कि how this policy has united Germany. तो after Napoleon, Prussia and Austria moved on two paths. Prussia moved towards liberalism, towards industrial revolution, towards uniting economically, unifying the countries via Zollverein. Austria wanted to keep them divided. Austria wanted to keep them conservative, to keep them backwards. Austria wanted the old imperial days of 16th, 17th centuries to continue. Therefore, Prussia was involved in creating railway lines, in giving economic prosperity. आप आज देख लें, टुडे इन 21st century, if there is a referendum and people of UP or Bihar or MP or Rajasthan voting हो जाए कि they want to go to India or to USA, United States of America, many people will vote for USA. कारण ये नहीं है कि you love USA. The reason is economic prosperity. We are living in such a country where people go to USA, and as they deboard their plane on airport, they come out, they post selfie, पहले तो selfie लेते हैं, they post on their Facebook, and their relative consider their life to be a success. इतना अंतर है कि they will start sending friend request to even the distant one, कि दूर दूर के राइवल हमारे देख लें कि now we have landed in USA. So that is the type of, जैसे in सप्तांग theory of Kautilya, he has called or he has equated the treasury with face. ट्रेजरी को फेस से कंपेयर किया है. अब ट्रेजरी तो फेस से क्यों कंपेयर होगी, फेस से तो कुछ और कंपेयर होना चाहिए. ही कंपेयर्ड किंग विद हेड and a fort with feet, so on, or hands, allies with this. But treasury is compared with face. तो चाणक्य का ये कहना है, कौटिल्य का, कि as people are attracted towards beautiful people, हम जैसे beautiful face की तरफ अट्रैक्ट होते हैं, likewise we are attracted towards rich nations. उसी तरह हम rich nation की तरफ अट्रैक्ट होते हैं. If you don't have a rich treasury, वो देखा ना आईफोन, दोज हु हैव आईफोन दे नेवर टेक द सेल्फी स्ट्रेट, दे विल टेक द सेल्फी वाया मिरर. वो मिरर सेल्फी लेते हैं क्योंकि भैया वो एप्पल दिखना चाहिए. सो दैट अट्रैक्ट्स पीपल. दिस आयरन एंड कोल मीन्स द इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन ऑफ प्रशा. Their Zollverein, where they have unified these states, drawn these states towards Prussia. And when Prussia had the military victories to show, these states were not even hesitant to join Prussia as a German union. So if there would have been no iron and coal, there would have been no success to the policy of blood and iron. ब्लड एंड आयरन की पॉलिसी के बाद तो आप मेयर गुंडे होते. After independence, many countries or many states, not many states, many states of India, they wanted to move away from India. However, it was the success of India, वैसे तो हम इकोनॉमिकली बहुत ज्यादा सक्सेसफुल नहीं रह पाए, बट आवर सक्सेस इज टुडे सो दैट ऑन द ग्राउंड्स ऑफ, अभी बीजेपी का सबसे बड़ा प्राइड पॉइंट क्या है कि गिव अस 5 years, वी विल डेवलप कश्मीर सो मच कि दीज पीपल विल नेवर टेक द नेम ऑफ पाकिस्तान, वो पाकिस्तान का नाम भी नहीं लेंगे. सो इट वॉज द कोल ऑफ आयरन विच हेल्प द पॉलिसी ऑफ ब्लड एंड आयरन. कोल एंड आयरन का मतलब यहां इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन, इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट, द इंटीग्रेशन ऑफ जर्मन किंगडम्स इनटू द इकोनॉमी ऑफ प्रशा. तो एक बार उन्होंने प्रशा के साथ इकोनॉमिक इंटीग्रेशन करके देखा, एंड दे हैव फाउंड इट बेनिफिशियल, दे हैव फाउंड इट बेटर देन ऑस्ट्रिया. सो व्हेन दे हैव टू चूज बिटवीन ऑस्ट्रिया एंड प्रशा, दे हैव चोजन द प्रशा. इफ प्रशा वुड नॉट हैव डन ब्लड और कोल एंड आयरन, तो पहले ऑस्ट्रिया से लड़ते, फिर फ्रांस से लड़ते, फिर इन किंगडम्स को भी हराना पड़ता. दे वुड हैव बीन डिफीटेड वन बाय वन. बट इन किंगडम को हराना नहीं पड़ा, वो खुद ही जाके ज्वाइन हो गए ऑस्ट्रिया, प्रशा में. इट वॉज लाइक अ लार्ज मैग्नेट एंड एवरीथिंग केम एंड ज्वाइंड इट. हाउएवर इटली डिड नॉट हैव दैट. इटली में तो बड़ा लंबा था, इटली को खुद जाना पड़ा, इसको हराना पड़ा, उसको हराना पड़ा, देन रेफरेंडम एंड ऑल दैट. बट प्रशा नेवर हैड टू शो दिस. So therefore German Empire was created by both. यही आपका आंसर है. Neither this nor that. Without blood and iron there would have been no German unification. Liberalism तो पहले ही नहीं जीत पाया था, बाद में कैसे जीता. However, without coal and iron, this policy of conquest, blood and iron, would have taken lot more time. Many other forces would have been involved. These South German states, they have sided with Prussia, not with France. ऐसा तो है नहीं इन्होंने फ्रांस के साथ साइड किया. So that has made the process smooth. I hope आपको कुछ समझ में आया होगा. ठीक है. Let me take 5 minutes break and then I'll continue it from question number 3. If you want to write question number 3, just write it. How the second international different from first international? क्या है ये इंटरनेशनल? What's this international? तो ये देखेंगे ब्रेक के बाद कि what are these internationals and how first and second were different. Now unable to understand that. हाँ ठीक है. So I have a 5 minutes break and I'll return within 5 minutes. So let's come to question number 3. How the Second International different from First International? So there are, according to the theory of communism, या कम्युनिज्म भी बाद में आया टर्म, according to the theory of socialism, or you can call it scientific socialism or Marxism, there are, first there is an economic structure or economic system which is called the basic structure and which defines the rules of society or the course of our history. That is called economic determinism. Economic laws determine ki how the society or history will move towards. That is called determinism, economic determinism. According to this theory, this basic structure develops a superstructure over it. These are the laws which, although are defined by economic system, but they are taken as separately by others. जैसे religion, तो religion is to take the surplus. पंडित आपसे कहता है कि ये दक्षिणा दे दो, this will happen, this positive thing will happen to you. Now you may feel that it's religion, something different from economics, but it's not. It's simply the basic structure which manifests itself as the superstructure. So religion, caste, varn, family, nation, state, everything is simply to channelize the surplus. ये बनते surplus खाने, word is not ideological. Buddhism, Jainism, Brahmanism's fight is not to give you nirvana. वो ये नहीं कह रहे हैं, बुद्धिज्म कह रहा है उपेक्षा भाव, मध्यम प्रतिपद will give you nirvana. Jainism says कैवल्य ज्ञान will give you nirvana. Vedanta says that mixing of atma into Brahman atma और परमात्मा का मिलन मोक्ष है. They are not here to give you moksha. They are to win as much patrons as they can so that they could earn more money. The struggle is ideological from outside. It seems an ideological struggle. आपका और मेरा आंसर राइटिंग का जो स्ट्रगल है, we want to write a better answer. Not because we have academic leanings, because we both want selection. और बाद में अल्टीमेटली जाके हमें सेलेक्ट होना है, उसके लिए हम अच्छा आंसर लिख रहे हैं. So our battle, our struggle is not ideological. Our struggle is for the material, for the economic purpose. तो ये socialism ने कहा. तो according to this scientific socialism, or after Marx, this was clear that everything is to control you. And one such thing is nation. That's why against this nation, the song of, वैसे तो सेकेंड इंटरनेशनल में है, बट सॉन्ग इज ला इंटरनेशनले. द इंटरनेशनल, आज भी उनका सॉन्ग है ला इंटरनेशनले. अकॉर्डिंग टू देम, नेशन इज वन सच ऑपरेसिव टूल which is to control you, which is to keep you separated, divided, so that you should not come together against the bourgeois. एमएनसी तो सब जगह काम कर रही है, लेबर को वीजा चाहिए. एमएनसी इज वर्किंग एवरीवेयर. दे आर हैंड इन ग्लव. ऑल द कैपिटलिस्ट कैन कम टुगेदर. अंबानी चाहे तो किसी के साथ कर ले, बट आई कैनॉट गो एंड मीट विद द मैन और द वर्कर ऑफ यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका. वीजा, स्टेट, सब कुछ मेरे को बताएगा. So therefore, it is simply that some people want to control us. According to neo-Marxism, और मार्क्स के समय ये कंसेप्ट आ गया था, even your family values are to are structured in such a way, are designed in such a way by society to keep you oppressed. That's why cultural Marxism talks about or against the family values. कि सब फैमिली भी आपको कंट्रोल गरीब रखने के लिए है. That's why you will see कि cultural Marxism also attacks the Western, वैसे तो वेस्ट क्या पूरी दुनिया में ही है, family values. But enough. That's why they have named their organization as international. And there are 4 such internationals. 1, 2, 3, 4. First international 1867, if I remember correctly, to 76. First international 1867 to 76. 1867 ही है इसका start here, I guess. Second international 1888 और 1889 हो सकता है to 1916. In the midst of World War I, it splintered, it splits. Third international was started by Vladimir Lenin. 1918 है या 19 है, ended by Joseph Stalin. This is called the Third International or Communist International. That's why the name is Comintern. And Fourth International was started against Stalinism by the great hero of Russian Revolution, and later he was exiled by Stalin and later murdered by Stalin. His name was Leon Trotsky. Real name was Lev Bronstein. जैसे Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov was name of Lenin. Joseph Yugashvili was name of Stalin. वैसे इसका नाम था. His name was, his famous name is Leon Trotsky. So he creates this against Stalinism. That's Fourth International. After his death, it declines, ends, खत्म हो गई. So these are the 4 internationals which were created. Let's understand one by one that why these internationals were created and why they have ended. That will give you the basic understanding that what this international is. Let's talk about the first international. First international. In this first international, the real split was, it was mainly because first why it was created, so I have told you it was named international, that workers of the world unite, they have nothing to lose except their chains, and therefore when they will be united, they can create a joint front against the nation and bourgeoisie. Yes, there was a very famous German socialist who later gave the concept of evolutionary socialism, Edward Bernstein. Edward Bernstein who was the disciple. बाद में मार्क्स एंगल्स ने अपने सारे वर्क्स का जो जिसको कहते हैं लीगल एयर ऑफ देयर वर्क्स, जो उन्होंने अपने वर्क्स को फाइनलाइज करने के लिए दिया, दैट इज दे हैव गिवन टू Edward Bernstein. So he was exiled from Germany. The reason was that he talked about international and German nationalism was at the high fervor. Bismarck has said that the politicians, the empires of the day have nothing to fear against for nations. Empires or nation to assimilative hai, they can work together. It's these internationalists who could not work with anyone. And you will see it was the romantic days of socialism. बाद में वो powerful बनने के बाद वो सुना होगा ना, either you die early hero or you become villain. आप जिंदा रहते हो विलेन बन जाते हो. So it was the hero days of socialism. And they split, the first international split होना शुरू हुआ after Paris Commune. You must know what is Paris Commune. In 1871 when Germans have defeated the French. At the very same moment, at the very same time when French armies were captured and defeated by Germany, the people of Paris rise against the Second Empire and resurrected the cities, created the barricades. वो आपने नारा सुना होगा, भी शाहीन बाग में भी लग रहा था, to the barricades. So this is the slogan of French Revolution. It was also taken in the Paris Commune. So whenever a part or city is taken and the barricades are created, barricade बना दिए जाते हैं, वो घर से लोग बोरियां लाके रोड के सामने रख देते हैं, and they stop armies or their vehicles to come in, and they create the hot gates. वो बड़े बड़े गेट बना के छोटे छोटे सकरे सकरे रास्ते बना देते हैं कि any policemen will come, so they will not come more than one or two. So this is the type of resurrection they have made. This is the type of barricading they have done, and they have taken over the city of Paris. Later, French could only defeat the Paris Commune with the help of Germans. The Germans were called and they have defeated the Paris. It is not the first phenomena but last of the great ones. जो French Revolution से चला आ रहा था, French Revolution, then you will see revolutions of 1830, revolutions of 1848. तो it was the old style. उसके बाद शहरी इतने चौड़े, इतने बड़े boulevards, parks were being made कि these resurrections were no longer possible. अभी दिल्ली में आप करोल बाग में रिजरेक्शन करना चाहें तो 16 लेन रोड, चौड़े से पार्क एंड एवरीथिंग, तो इट इज नॉट पॉसिबल फॉर यू टू रिजरेक्ट दैट सिटी. पुरानी दिल्ली आज भी रिजरेक्ट हो सकती है. यू कैन स्टिल इंसरेक्शन, रिजरेक्शन, इंसरेक्शन, यू कैन स्टिल क्रिएट सम इंसर्जेंसी. और तो दैट वाज, दोज वर द ओल्ड सिटीज, सकरे सकरे रास्ते होते थे. तो पेरिस कम्यून वाज क्रिएटेड. आफ्टर पेरिस कम्यून्स फेलियर, as Paris Commune failed in 1871 in the midst of this international. This internationals, these socialists were so much fan of Paris Commune. Paris Commune के इतने fan हुए कि इन्होंने Paris Commune पे ही अपने को कम्युनिस्ट लिखा. फिर तो कम्यून मीन्स होता है जैसे आपके पंचायत, the very local part of, in Russia the local governments, पंचायत लेवल गवर्नमेंट या जो म्युनिसिपैलिटी की होती है, they are called Soviets. The local government of Russia was called Soviet. That's why Soviet Union, union of all the Soviets, Soviet level पे वर्क करेंगे. That's the type of decentralization we have. Communism means the work so, or the authority so decentralized कि every commune will have their own government. और state will be nothing but the conglomeration of communes. तो पेरिस कम्यून proved to be a failure. फेल हो गया पेरिस कम्यून. After which the strategy of the international got split. Half of them started talking about, अब फेल क्यों हुआ, इस पे टेंशंस. तो 1872 the split began. The split began with anarchist onwards. Anarchist, शायद मैंने आपको yesterday I've told you कि those who have fist as their, जो fist होती है ऐसे करके वो हाथ बना हुआ है. This fist is there. वो सीधा नहीं बनता, यो नहीं, ऐसे यूं करके बनता. This fist is their symbol. So according to these anarchists, there shall be no professional involvement. The people, one individual, each and every people alone is responsible for this bloody revolution where proletariat will throw away the lid of bourgeois. तो बिल्कुल वर्कर वन बाय वन इंडिविजुअल लेवल पे we will design this, we will have this revolution will come. On the other hand, there were Marxists. These Marxists said कि इतना spontaneous on its own this is not going to happen. कोई रेवोल्यूशन खुद लोग आ जाएं, they're not so trained, they're not so motivated. This confused mass of people. You need a basic sort of leadership. एक leadership चाहिए. And you need some people to lead this revolution. So these revolution will have the leaders. According to anarchist, this leader is replacing one empire by the other. एक empire हटेगी, दूसरी आ जाएगी. तो ये leader का concept नहीं रखेंगे. According to Marxists, that is romantic understanding of revolution. ये romantic conception है revolution का. Therefore, this is not going to work. ये वर्क नहीं करेगा। When all this happened, जब सब डिस्कशन होता रहा, 1876 on this mass based revolution and revolution of people led by leaders, there was a split and the first international has ended. So first international has this reason to have international, and that also ended after Paris Commune when the split has appeared कि होना क्या चाहिए. Second international, which started in 1888, and this was obviously started after Marx. Marx के बाद ही start हुई थी. ठीक है. In this international, it was the Marxist international. It was led by Marxists. In this, the main mass was the main people who were involved in Marxist. This was where 1st May, the May Day was adopted. वैसे तो पहले ही concept आ गया था May Day का, 1 May, in the lifetime of Marx only. But it was adopted in 1889 as the International Working Men's Day. और बाद में women का भी concept आया, तो from Working Men's Day it was created as Labor Day. क्या मलबूस भी बताता है कि मजबूर हूं मैं, पर 1 मई है तो महजूर हूं मैं. हाथ पांव भी बताते हैं कि और क्या है, यौमे मजदूर है मेरा खाका, मेरा फाका है, पर ये दिन तो बनाऊंगा कि मजदूर हूं मैं. So this is the type of poetry which develops around this. इप्टा जो है ना, इंटरनेशनल क्या पीपल्स थिएटर, एंड ऑल दिस इज ड्रिवन बाय दिस मार्क्सिज्म. ये सब ये मार्क्सिज्म से ही ड्रिवन है. दैट्स व्हाई यू विल सी अ लॉट ऑफ फिल्म स्टार्स, लॉट ऑफ इंडिया के तो इतने पढ़े लिखे हैं ही नहीं कि मार्क्सिज्म समझे, बट लॉट ऑफ थिएटर वर्कर्स, दे आर ह्यूजली ड्रॉन फ्रॉम मार्क्सिज्म. काफी मार्क्सिज्म से ह्यूजली ड्रॉन है. सो नाउ this has adopted, or this international started as a Marxist international. However, in the high age of nationalism, 1885, you will see the African new imperialism will start, the paper partition of Africa. You will understand that on the issue of, I am not asking a lot of questions from events simply. In the light of this information, in the light of this understanding, you should, मेरे को लगता था हर बार जब whenever I design a question, I think students will have the idea of events and will have the analysis. But as I discussed, तो हर क्लास में, offline class, student classroom में I always find कि students are blank when I start analyzing the things. So therefore, I have to return back to the events. अब events के लिए वो question बेहतर था कि the paper partition of Africa, the new imperialism, which I will try to ask in next class. But Africa का paper partition हुआ. On ground or on table, everyone sat and partitioned the Africa artificially. No war took place. This is the high age of nationalism. Every country wanted to have a chunk for their national glory apart from economic glory. World War I was the high age of nationalism. हम भी nationalism हमने अडॉप्ट किया. दिस वॉज द 1880s was the time when India was also becoming nationalist. तो दिस वॉज द ग्रेट फर्वर विच स्प्रेड ऑल अक्रॉस द वर्ल्ड. और सेकेंड इंटरनेशनल इसी नेशनलिज्म के अगेंस्ट बनी थी. जैसे इकबाल इन हिज पैन इस्लामिज्म में पूरा इस्लाम शुड बी ए नेशन, तो ही राइट्स की तहजीब के आजर ने तरशवाए सनम और इन ताजा खुदाओं में बड़ा सबसे वतन है. इन दिस न्यू गॉड्स द बिगेस्ट इज नेशन. जो पैरहन इसका है वो मजहब का कफन है. द क्लोथ विच नेशन वियर्स इज द कफन ऑफ रिलीजन. और नजारा दैरी न जमाने को दिखा दे, मुस्तफवी खाक में इस बुत को मिला दे. दैट ऑल द वर्ल्ड्स मुस्लिम, दे हैव देयर ड्यूटी टू एंड देयर नेशंस एंड मेक अ पैन इस्लामिक नेशन. तो कैसे और लंबी पोयम है कि हाउ ही डिस्क्राइब दिस. दिस वॉज द पोयम विच ही रिसाइटेड इन 1930 इलाहाबाद, जब उन्होंने पाकिस्तान का कंसेप्ट दिया था. नाउ दैट्स एन आयरनी, ही इज गिविंग द कंसेप्ट ऑफ अ न्यू नेशन, टू नेशन थ्योरी. ही इज गिविंग द कंसेप्ट ऑफ अ नेशन स्टेट, एंड हाउ ही इज नरेटिंग अ पोयम कि गुफ्तार सियासत में वतन और ही कुछ है, इरशाद नबूवत में वतन और ही कुछ है. Means the concept of qawm, the concept of nation is different in Islam and different in the modern way. Pakistan हम modern nation state नहीं बना रहे, we are reviving the Khilafat Madina. So this is what his conception was. So nation in those days, in 1880s to 1960s, 70s, अभी last कुछ years तक, nation was considered the greatest. अभी तो return of religion चल रहा है कि all the Christian world is coming together, Islamic world is coming together, है ना. अभी देखते हैं आगे क्या होता है. अभी वर्ल्ड इज मूविंग समवेयर एल्स, बट स्टिल दिस एंड ऑफ 19th century was high age of nations, and therefore this nationalism that started developing in 1904-5. Dada Bhai Nauroji, when attended the Second International, he was introduced as the Indian socialist, and the Second International started identifying, or people have started identifying themselves with their nation rather than their ideology. When World War I has appeared, all the socialists, their speeches were in the defense of their nations. उनकी speech उनके nation को defend करती थी. This was the reason that Second International, on the eve of World War I, Balkan Wars हुए थे, which you must know, Balkan League. So there were two Balkan War, the first Balkan War and the second Balkan War. Italo-Turkish War, the war between Ottoman Empire and Italy. Then you will see the World War I has begun. And in these events from 1910, when the storm gathered, जो avalanche का storm गया, एक पत्थर दूसरे से टकराता है और जो storm gather होता है, तो when the storm started gathering, तो gathering storm में everyone was supporting their own nation. Everyone was defending their own nation. And due to this nationalism, this proved the death nail to Second International. और ये बात भी बिल्कुल सही है. International को खतरा नेशन से ही था. So at the end of the day, it was the nationalism which has ended the Second International. Then came the third one, the Third International. Comintern. It was created by Lenin to create a communist bloc, because it was the high age of Russian Civil War and he wanted to create a world revolution. This is the start of Cold War. If someone asks you where the Cold War really started, तो that is Russian Civil War. वहीं से Cold War शुरू हो गया. बाद में it was simply the events which folded out. So you can write a question which again I wanted to ask but did not. उसका फायदा नहीं होता है जब आपको पता ना हो चीजें. World War II was an interregnum. World War II was an interregnum in long fought Cold War. एक लंबे लड़े गए कोल्ड वॉर में, लॉन्ग फॉट कोल्ड वॉर, अ लॉन्ग ड्रॉन कोल्ड वॉर. वर्ल्ड वॉर टू वॉज सिंपली एन इंटरेग्नम. ये बस एक इंटरेग्नम था. अभी एडोल्फ हिटलर्स राइज टू पावर, व्हेन आई एक्सप्लेन कि हाउ द राइज ऑफ एडोल्फ हिटलर वॉज नॉट अपीज्ड सिंपली. हम कहते हैं उसे आज अपीजमेंट हो गया, उसको अपीज करते रहे. ही वॉज नॉट अपीज्ड. He was nourished, he was supported, he was funded by these Western powers. Britain, France, US, they have not appeased the rise of Hitler. ऐसा नहीं वो rise of Hitler पे आंख बंद करे हुए थे. उन्होंने ही rise of Hitler करवाया. It was not possible for Germany and Hitler to bounce back so strongly. सबको ये लगा कि हिटलर is the one who will defeat the Soviet Union. और यही बात स्टालिन को पसंद नहीं आई. That's why even after World War II, Stalin was not ready to share the spoils. उसका कहना था आप लोग हमें वैसे ही मारना चाह रहे थे. This Hitler was your product. And now, इसीलिए कंस्पिरेसी थ्योरी है कि हिटलर जिंदा बच गया. ठीक है. Third international, it was communist international. However, this international wanted to export the world revolution. Stalin has made Comintern centered in Moscow. Third international or communist international that has made Moscow as their center. That has made Moscow, जैसे इंडिया में जब सीपीआई पार्टी बनी तो इट वॉज द थर्ड इंटरनेशनल विच हैज सेंट एमएन रॉय. लेनिन से मिलकर एमएन रॉय आए थे. एमएन रॉय हु वॉज द डिसाइपल ऑफ बाघा जतिन and who was the disciple of Sister Nivedita, the lady who was disciple of Swami Vivekanand. तो आप देखें कि how interesting it is, although I am not discussing Indian history here, कि Swami Vivekanand, he has inspired Sister Nivedita and Bagha Jatin in Bengal कि जिम बनाओ, अपनी जिम बनाओ, युगांतर जिम बनाओ, अभिनव भारत नहीं, हां जिम बनाओ, अनुशीलन समिति, सॉरी अभिनव भारत नहीं, अनुशीलन समिति. अनुशीलन मीन्स लिव विद डिसिप्लिन. युगांतर हैव द जिम्नेजियम, सीक्रेट सोसाइटीज. एंड स्वामी विवेकानंद इज द वन हु इन वेस्टर्न इंडिया, इन रीजन ऑफ डेक्कन, हैज इंस्पायर्ड मित्र मेला एंड अभिनव भारत. मित्र मेला कि हैव अ सीक्रेट सोसाइटी, वहां पे भी जिम्नेजियम बनाओ. सो दीज टू सीक्रेट सोसाइटी डेवलप्ड इंस्पायर्ड बाय विवेकानंद. इसमें कोई दबी छुपी बात नहीं. एट वन प्लेस दैट जिम्नेजियम अनुशीलन समिति वेंट टू बाघा जतिन. उनके जो डिसाइपल थे एम एन रॉय एंड हिज डिसाइपल, फिर बाद में आज की करंट डे सीपीआई पार्टी, कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी ऑफ इंडिया. इन वेस्टर्न इंडिया तो इट वॉज सावरकर फ्रॉम मित्र मेला, ऑल्दो सावरकर हैज सबसाइडेड, बट बाद में सावरकर ज्वाइंड हिंदू महासभा, from which appeared Bharatiya Jan Sangh, from which appeared Bharatiya Janata Party. So if you will trace the two spectrum of Indian politics, both of them as a pyramid ends at its top. Both end with Swami Vivekanand. पर ये कम्युनिस्टों को बताओ जाके तो आपका मुंह नोच लें. Therefore they like to call themselves as Anushilan Marxists. Those who have joined CSP, Congress Socialist Party, in 1933, and later many of them moved to forward bloc of सुभाष चंद्र बोस, और बाद में सीपीआई में भी बहुत सारे गए. सो थर्ड इंटरनेशनल. तो इनके बारे में कहा जाता था, सीपीआई के बारे में, सॉरी फॉर डाइग्रेसिंग, फॉर सीपीआई इट वॉज कॉल्ड कि वेन एवर देयर आर क्लाउड्स इन मॉस्को दे ओपन देयर अम्ब्रेला इन कैलकाटा. मॉस्को में क्लाउड होते थे, कलकत्ता में छाता खोल लेते थे. द रीजन वॉज दैट दे वर ड्रिवन फ्रॉम मॉस्को. हाउएवर, इन द हाई एज ऑफ वर्ल्ड वॉर II, when the concept of international was under question, Stalin was now Uncle Joe for US people. Stalin को US वाले Uncle Joe बोलने लगे. And the liberty ships of America was taking its help towards USSR. Second front was yet to be opened in Normandy. Entire concentration of Hitler was on the eastern front. The city of Stalingrad was under siege. General Zhukov on one side of Stalingrad, Russian side. Heinz Guderian was on this side of Stalingrad. Or the fight of World War II was at its brutal peak. Joseph Stalin has ended this Communist International. उसे लगा यार ऐसा ना हो कि इंटरनेशनल की पॉलिटिक्स में जान देनी पड़ जाए, बिकॉज दिस वॉज मॉस्को एंड दिस इज स्टालिनग्राड. Germans have controlled Stalingrad because all the oil and revenue goes of Caspian Seas goes up the Volga into Moscow. तो वोल्गा में से वो नीचे वोल्गा जाती है, वो ऊपर वोल्गा से उसके स्टीमर्स जाते थे स्टालिन के. Hitler wanted to stop this. Therefore, when fight was at its peak in Stalingrad, और बाद में फिर लंबी कहानी है. कर्स ऑफ टैमरलेन इज ऑल्सो इन्वॉल्व इन दिस. तैमूरलंग का नाम सुना होगा, उसका कर्स इसमें इन्वॉल्व है. इट्स अ स्टोरी फॉर सम अदर डे. नेट पे आप लोग सर्च कर लेना, सर्च करना हो तो. So this was third international. Fourth international was started by Leon Trotsky against Stalinism. Leon Trotsky was of the view continuous revolution, not that two-stage of Lenin. He was also of the view of world revolution, not like what Stalin is doing, making communism strong in one country then exporting it. Trotsky का कहना था ये सब गलत कंसेप्ट है कि एक कंट्री को मास्टर बना लो. It's again a type of nationalism. However, he was soon murdered. उसका मर्डर हो गया. After his murder, the fourth international withered away. There is no date of और स्पेशल डेट ऑफ एंडिंग इट। ठीक है। फोर्थ, द ओल्ड reckless system of alliances. The old reckless system of alliances pushed Europe to the Great War. A modern and mixed structure of international relations would have contained the situation explained. The old reckless system of alliances. तो देखें 1815, soon after the Napoleon died, or not died to 1821, soon after the Napoleon has left the scene of Europe, sent to St. Helena, mid-Atlantic. There was a conference which was still going on, not called but still going on, to decide the fate of post-Napoleonic Europe. It was that Congress of Vienna, Vienna Congress. This Vienna Congress gave two systems. One is the concept of legitimacy, that thrones should be returned to the older kings. जो फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन के पहले और नेपोलियन के आने के पहले किंग्स थे, they should be returned the throne. उनको थ्रोन वापस कर देना चाहिए. They should sit on their old thrones. And second concept which appeared more important, legitimacy तो बहुत सालों से चल रही, हमारे यहाँ भी चलती थी. बहादुर शाह जफर और ये सब, all these were holding the throne only because of this concept or acceptance of legitimacy. However, the bigger concept which is more than legitimacy was the concept of balance of power. Balance of power. Now, in this conception of balance of power, the main agenda was that the peace of Europe can only be preserved when one side will not appear too powerful as it is in the case of Napoleon. तो होगा ये कि there are 5 countries, concept है 5 countries, Britain, France, Prussia, Austria, Russia. इनके बीच का बैलेंस 2 or 3, और whenever someone starts increasing its power तो बाकी दूसरी तरफ आ जाए. So this jigsaw puzzle or this 5 balls will be managed in such a way कि एक बैलेंस बना रहा है. No one should appear very powerful. ये concept, this was given by Clemens von Metternich, the one who has created the European system. 1852, there was a crisis in Black Sea. I think you all must have guessed it by now. Its name is the Crimean War. The war fought in the peninsula of Crimea, from where the United Italy has appeared. United Italy appeared from the mud of Crimea. यहीं पर Piedmont, Sardinia sided with France, और फिर Pact of Plombiers and defeating Austria and so on. So this has set the course for Italian unification. So in this Crimean War, when Russia has attacked Ottoman Empire and Austria was silent on this. Austria तो इस पे कुछ नहीं बोल रहा था, neutral. But France and Britain, they preferred siding with Ottomans, not with Russia. Although in quadruple alliance they were with Russia, although they also have the mutual historic hostility with Ottoman, that's called the Ottoman peril. Their religion was also different, and this was the age when true secularism did not develop. Secularism का concept ही नहीं था. Religion always played a great role. However, France and Britain sided with Ottomans for the concept of balance of power. They do not want Russia to be too powerful, because this was the same Russia which from the land was threatening the Indian territories. You must have heard Dost Muhammad and Shah Shuja, the first Afghan War, 1839 to 42. So this was the time when Russia was involved in great game against Britain in taking over India. There is a rivalry, long drawn rivalry between Russia and Britain for taking Afghanistan and India region. France wanted to reach Arabian Sea, the warm waters. Or Britain do not wanted Russia to be too powerful. Even France. That's why they have sided with Ottomans, defeated Russians. Russians को defeat किया. So this was the concept of balance of power. After Bismarck, when Bismarck has won over, this is Spain, France, Germany, Austria, Russia, Ottomans. When Bismarck has created this unified Germany, Britain. When Bismarck has created this unified Germany, he wanted to have this balance. He has strengthened this balance of power. He has made the unconditional friendship with Austria. Germany and Austria, unconditional friendship. He created the League of Three Emperors with Germany, Austria and Russia. Dreikaiserbund. He, with his support of Italian unification, Italian nationalism, he also created the Triple Alliance, Germany, Italy and Austria, and balanced the power in such a way that France was always isolated. Britain was living in a splendid isolation. Is common politics, uska matlab hi nahi. However, after this, Bismarck was replaced. Bismarck chancellor tha for 17 years. He had full control of German politics. But as the Kaiser Wilhelm, the emperor, died, and his son also died the same year, the young grandson, the 30 years old Kaiser William II, the crippled grandchild of Queen Victoria, एक हाथ उसका, he was born upside down. पहले पैर निकले उसके. बच्चा पैदा होता है तो child born, I think first head comes. या पैर आते हैं पहले तो उसका हेड आया, या पहले हेड आता है तो उसका पहले पैर आया. वो उल्टा पैदा हुआ. And in that childbirth, his hand was crippled. So he was an assertive boy who always wanted to कि लोग मुझे seriously नहीं लेते. And he asserted himself on German politics. And he has replaced Bismarck. उसने पहले तो Bismarck को हटाया 1888. And then he took the full control of German politics. And he ended the type of cautiousness of Bismarckian politics. उसने Bismarck की politics की उस cautiousness को खत्म किया. He said when Germany is so powerful, why it should not assert the power. और जैसे ये power assert करनी उसने शुरू करी, Dreikaiserbund से Russia did not created the Dreikaiserbund after 1893. Even Italy, it flirted with other powers rather than siding with Germany. And therefore you will see that this is the system of alliances when everyone is trying to be friend with other. France and Britain, long-standing rivals. For 2 centuries they are fighting for colonial war. आपने कहा 7 years war, war of Austrian succession, war of Spanish succession. उसके पहले 1710s में Louis XIV के अंदर, Louis XV के अंदर 7 years war, Louis XVI के अंदर American War of Revolution, under Napoleon the war of coalitions, and so on. It's only the Crimean War where two fought together to end the third party. Otherwise, they are long-standing rivals. They came together against German dominance. Russia, which was sharing border with Prussia, enmity तो उसकी Germany से होनी चाहिए. But and Germany under Bismarck always identified this. Always wanted to make Russia. According to Bismarck, the domination, the key of European domination is friendship with Russia. Russia cannot be defeated. कोई defeat नहीं कर सकता. And he proved to be right. तो Russia also sided with France and Britain. तो ये alliances और counter alliances बनने लगे. The reckless system, the secret society, the secret politics. अब now a modern system international relation would have contained the situation. कैसे? When these alliances were made, ये तो World War I की background है कि how these alliances were made. When these alliances were made, तो instead of, if there would have been a permanent body like United Nations organization, तो एक कोई उसमें हर साल वो लाते हैं, वन वुड हैव प्रपोज समथिंग तो अदर वुड हैव क्रॉस्ड इट, तो फिर कोई वीटो करता, दे वुड हैव सॉल्व देयर इश्यूज इन दिस परमानेंट बॉडी. इन दोज डेज देयर वाज नो परमानेंट बॉडी. किसी एक को कांग्रेस कॉल करनी होती. इफ कांग्रेस वुड हैव कॉल्ड बाय जर्मनी तो ऑस्ट्रिया एंड ऑटोमन्स वुड हैव appeared. If Congress would have called by Britain, तो France and Russia would have appeared. There was no neutral party to back it up. कोई ऐसा भी नहीं कि न्यूट्रल पार्टी लाइक स्पेन, खैर उस समय तो स्पेन भी न्यूट्रल नहीं था. न्यूट्रल पार्टी लाइक यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका, लेट्स से, दे कॉल और दे ट्राई टू ईज द सिचुएशन, जैसा करते हैं. इन दोज डेज इट वाज सिंपली अलायंसेज एंड काउंटर अलायंसेज, बिकॉज एवरीवन वांट्स कि फ्यूचर में वॉर होगा, या एवरीवन वांट्स टू असर्ट इट्स डोमिनेंस बाय शोइंग दैट आवर अलायंस इज बेटर देन यू. Therefore, it's like armed peace. On the eve of World War I, Europe was at the stage of armed peace, uneasy tension. Armed peace का मतलब सब लोग अपनी आर्मी लेके, बंदूकें लेके, एकदम पीस, सन्नाटा. That also something which happened in Cold War. Thankfully, Cold War diffused itself. Cold War में detente हो गया यार. Thankfully, Mikhail Gorbachev has appeared. हारा जीता कोई भी हो, but Mikhail Gorbachev at least have made the, और कोल्ड वॉर के जो प्रेशर कुकर की सीटी उसने उठा दी. सो द स्टीम केम आउट. ये बात अलग है, अमेरिका गॉट द बोस्टिंग राइट्स, रीगन, तो वो सब अलग पॉलिटिक्स है, विच विल डिस्कस नेक्स्ट क्लास टुमारो परहैप्स. बट दिस थिंग वाज नॉट ईज्ड हियर. ये ईज यहां नहीं हो पाया. दैट कोल्ड वॉर कंटिन्यूड. दोज इश्यूज स्टार्टेड गैदरिंग अप एंड अलायंसेज वर स्टिल बीइंग मेड. जैसे ऑटोमन, Russia has clearly declared Ottoman as the sick man of Europe. एक बीमार आदमी who's feverish, ready to die, ill. And the sick and ill man, feverish, he will die tomorrow or day after tomorrow. Let's divide his property. जैसे कोई बूढ़ा आदमी मरने वाला हो तो उसके रिश्तेदार आ जाएं कि भैया इसकी प्रॉपर्टी अब बांट लेते हैं. So Russia also had the same view of Ottomans. Ottoman wanted someone. तो इफ देयर वुड हैव बीन टुडेज पॉलिटिक्स, तो ऑटोमन सैंक्शंस लगवाता रशिया पे कि दिस इज रॉन्ग, यूएन वुड हैव इंटरवीन, पीस कीपिंग फोर्स, कुछ होता रशिया का. हाउएवर इन दोज डेज ऑटोमन्स ओनली हैड एन अलायंस टू सेव इटसेल्फ, और वो अलायंस ऑस्ट्रिया और जर्मनी का था. जर्मनी हैज प्रपोज्ड अ रेलवे लाइन बर्लिन टू बगदाद रेलवे लाइन. ऑटोमन्स वर मोर देन ईगर टू पिक इट. उसका कारण यह था कि पर्शिया में तब तक ईरान के पास ऑयल फील्ड, इराक, ईरान में यूफ्रेटस रिवर में ऑयल फील्ड निकल आए थे. तो जर्मनी वांटेड टू एक्सप्लॉइट दोज ऑयल फील्ड्स एंड बर्लिन टू बगदाद रेलवे लाइन वाज प्रपोज्ड. ऑटोमन्स वर मोर देन ईगर. नाउ दिस फ्रांस एंड रशिया डिड नॉट जॉइन इट. बिल्कुल जैसा भी बेल्ट एंड रोड इनिशिएटिव ऑफ चाइना. हिस्ट्री रिपीट्स इटसेल्फ. पढ़ी हिस्ट्री इसलिए जाती है बिकॉज यू विल सी इट्स एग्जैक्टली द सेम थिंग हैपेंस एवरी नाउ एंड देन. द ओनली थिंग विच वी लर्न फ्रॉम हिस्ट्री इज दैट वी लर्न नथिंग. ये जो अलायंसेस, काउंटर अलायंसेस थे, दे वर रेकलेस. सिंपली आपने एक अलायंस बनाया, दूसरे ने दूसरा अलायंस बनाया, फिर आपने और स्ट्रांग बनाया, दूसरे ने और स्ट्रांग बनाया. जैसे देयर इज अ वेरी फेमस स्टोरी कि इन ब्रिटिश पार्लियामेंट द लिबरल्स, द लेबर पार्टी एंड कंजर्वेटिव पार्टी, द टोरी एंड विग पार्टी, दे वर डिबेटिंग अबाउट द इंक्रीज इन गन बोट्स, आर्म शिप्स, उनका इंक्रीज किया जाए. इट इज 1913. तो कंजर्वेटिव्स वर प्रपोजिंग 15 न्यू शिप्स, लेबर पार्टी वाज प्रपोजिंग लेस, एंड देयरफॉर अभी लेबर पार्टी बनी नहीं थी, विग पार्टी, इट प्रपोज्ड 5 गन शिप्स. तो एक 15 कह रहा था, एक 5 कह रहा था. आफ्टर डिस्कशन बोथ एग्रीड ऑन 30. सो दिस वाज द टाइप ऑफ आर्म्ड रेस और आर्म्ड थ्रेट द वर्ल्ड वाज सीइंग. द मोर you discuss it, the bigger it looks. After this alliances and counter alliances, there appeared a time when World War I, everyone fought that. जैसे अब सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर का नेचर दूसरा है. सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर is more imposed war. No one wanted to fight that war. A lot of countries did not wanted to fight that war. Whereas World War I was eagerly fought by everyone. सबको लगा ये long standing 1 century long issue, इसको बस अब खत्म ही करो यार. So that's why World War I was fought very eagerly. And it was the system of alliances. This side, France, England, France, and Britain This alliance was called Triple Entente. And Austria, Germany and Ottomans, they are called Triple Alliance. And as they are at the center of Europe, flanked from both sides by Russia and this side by France and Britain, they are also called Central Powers. So this was the alliances and counter alliances which set itself as World War I. So for this you have to study the background of World War I. एक बार पढ़ लेना background of World War I if you want. तो I'll ask sir to provide notes. आपको notes दे देंगे. World War I का background is very important. Don't start your history with World War I. इसीलिए you won't feel comfortable. Last question for the day. The failure of February Revolution was the primary reason behind the October Revolution in Russia. Examine also discuss the consequences of October Revolution for Russia and the world. तो जो question है, it focuses in the time between February of 1917 to October of 1917. वैसे तो फालतू की कहानी, बट ओल्ड कैलेंडर, इसमें 11 डेज कम होता है. अदरवाइज इट्स फ्रॉम मार्च टू नवंबर अकॉर्डिंग टू आवर ग्रेगोरियन कैलेंडर, जो 1730s 40s में अडॉप्ट हुआ था. बट स्टिल, जैसे देयर इज अ क्वेश्चन विच आई वांट यू टू आंसर, कभी आंसर करिएगा. द फेमाइन ऑफ 1783, क्या लिख रहा हूं मैं, फेमाइन ऑफ 1783 in India is called as Chalisa famine. Chalisa famine. The famine of 1899, one of the last or second last great famine, Bengal वाला last था, is called Chappaniya Dukal. Chappaniya Dukal. So why 1783 is named on Chalisa Chalis? And why 1899 is named on Chappaniya Chappan? तो what's the reason? पता हो तो कमेंट में बताएं. Then I'll see कि how much of you have this understanding of Indian history. क्यों इनको 40 और छप्पनिया दुकाल कहा गया? I'm sure you will find the answer or you know the answer already. इसीलिए पूछ भी रहा हूं. If that would have been a difficult question, I would have answered myself. तो February and October, according to old calendar. So now I have told you yesterday also that in every revolution there are two masses. Both revolt, but they take the power. They never get the power. जैसे एक बेनी प्रसाद शुक्ल हैं, पोएट ऑफ अवध रीजन लखनऊ. तो आफ्टर इंडियन इंडिपेंडेंस ही राइट्स कि क्या हुई गवा आजाद भारत हमार, और कहाँ हुई बेड़िन की झनकार, कहाँ आप कुर्सी गद्देदार, कहाँ चवन्नी मांगे गुजर. 25 पैसा वॉज द मेंबरशिप ऑफ कांग्रेस. कहाँ चवन्नी मांगे गुजर, कहाँ आप दौलत बेसुमार. और कॉलेज स्वतंत्र, खिड़की कॉलेज की सब खिड़की स्वतंत्र, टीचर लड़का लड़की स्वतंत्र, क्या स्वतंत्र, घलियार गूर चरहा स्वतंत्र, हाकिम स्वतंत्र हरहा स्वतंत्र, घरियार घूर चरहा स्वतंत्र, परतंत्र हुए ईमानदार, होगा स्वतंत्र भारत हमार. इट मीन्स दैट those who are honest, they are still under oppression. बाकी तो भारत स्वतंत्र हो ही गया है. तो एवरीवेयर वी हैव करप्शन, एवरीवेयर वी हैव, जो बेड़ियों में बैठते थे वो गद्देदार कुर्सियों में बैठ के रिश्वत ले रहे हैं. सो दिस हैपेंस, एवरी रेवोल्यूशन एंड्स विद अ लॉट ऑफ डिसअपॉइंटमेंट फॉर द मासेस. रशियन रेवोल्यूशन में भी यही हुआ कि देयर वाज वॉर, there were a lot of youths being killed, there was heavy inflation, there was lack of resources, and there were a lot of things, many things. बहुत सारी चीजें हो रही थी. In these, you will see कि people of Russia did not wanted to fight this war. उनको ये वॉर नहीं लड़ना था. The reason was कि Russia was not gaining anything out of this war. And a lot of Russians in Eastern Front were dying. There were lack of resources. War तो सबके लिए मुश्किल होता है. People have rebelled that they wanted to end this war. इस वॉर को उन्हें खत्म करना है. There are various groups. First is the politicians, or you can say elites, nobles. ज़्यादातर elites ही politicians थे. Those who in 1905 got the power with the help of parliament called Duma, but were not given real powers. जब मर्जी होती थी तो Tsar used to dismiss the Duma. So this Duma could never assert its power for last 12 years. There was the party of Mensheviks, those who say that it was, you can call them the moderates of Russian politics. Then there were Bolsheviks, those who were the extremists of Russian politics, those who say direct action. Then there were social democrats, those who wanted to, कभी ज्यादा पावर में नहीं आया तो इनका बहुत व्यू तो नहीं इंपॉर्टेंट है, बट दे वर द वन हु व्यूड दैट इट शुड बी द हेल्प ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी विच एवरीथिंग शुड कम. कोई एक प्लान मार्क्सिस्ट और ये सब प्लान नहीं चलाना है. मेंशेविक बोल्शेविक बोथ वर ऑफ द मार्क्सिस्ट स्ट्रेटेजी. सोशल डेमोक्रेट्स वर द डेमोक्रेट्स. देन देयर इज RSDLP, द रूरल सोशलिस्ट पार्टी, द पार्टी ऑफ रूरल. अब बात ये, व्हाई आई एम टेलिंग यू दिस, द ओनली पार्टी विच वॉज absolutely anti-war were Bolsheviks. सिर्फ यही थे जो प्योरली एंटी-वॉर थे कि दिस इज अ कैपिटलिस्ट वॉर, इंपीरियलिस्टिक वॉर. इंपीरियलिज्म इज नथिंग बट द हाईएस्ट फॉर्म ऑफ कैपिटलिज्म. ये तो कैपिटलिज्म का हायर फॉर्म है. डोंट फाइट दिस वॉर. नाउ दीज Bolsheviks, they were exiled. जैसे योजेफ चुगशविली took the name Stalin, was exiled in Caspian Sea, उज्बेकिस्तान की तरफ. Lev Bronstein, who's Leon Trotsky, Vladimir Ulyanov, who was Lenin, they all were exiled in Europe. वो एक स्विट्जरलैंड में, एक ऑस्ट्रिया में. So all these politicians were exiled. That's why when they will come to power, they will not, इस पर किसी को जिंदा नहीं छोड़ेंगे. The reason is, according to Stalin's own word, if Tsar left them alone, it was his mistake, and it later became the death of Tsar himself. तो कभी भी अपने एनिमी को जिंदा छोड़ने का मतलब यह होता है कि यू आर प्रिपेयरिंग हिम फॉर रिवेंज. दैट्स व्हाई नन ऑफ देम, जैसे आप स्टालिन को देखें, ही हैज किल्ड ऑल ऑफ हिज फ्रेंड्स. बुखारिन, प्रोब्रेजिंस्की, ट्रॉट्स्की, सबको उसने मारा. सो दीज बोल्शेविक्स वर एंटी वॉर पार्टी. ये सीज प्योरली एंटी वॉर थे. फेब्रुअरी रेवोल्यूशन टुक प्लेस. When Tsar was in his train, he was stopped and he was asked, now you have to step down. Parliament is taking the power. As Parliament took the power in Glorious Revolution in Britain 1688, as Parliament took power in French Revolution 1791, as Parliament has took power in India 1947, when asked the British Governor General to renounce the power. हमारे लिए तो गवर्नर जनरल था, क्वीन और क्वीन ने उसको परमिशन दी. किंग हैज गिवन द परमिशन, जॉर्ज VI, और सेक्रेटरी ऑफ स्टेट ने उसको परमिशन दी, ठीक है स्टेप डाउन. तो आर एंड ब्रिटिश वाज ब्लडलेस, फ्रेंच का थोड़ा ब्लडी था. तो पॉलिटिशियंस हैव टेकन द पावर, एज दे हैव टेकन पावर इन इंडिया, एज दे हैव टेकन पावर इन ब्रिटेन. रशिया में भी इन्होंने पावर ले ली. दैट्स व्हाई इट इज कॉल्ड द बॉर्जुआ रेवोल्यूशन. हुआ है कि द थ्रोन वाज ऑफर्ड टू, Mikhail was his name, to the cousin of king, कि you become the constitutional monarch. जैसे ब्रिटेन में मोनार्क हैं, वैसे ही आप भी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मोनार्क बन जाए. द कजन डिक्लाइंस, वो डिक्लाइन करता है कि पावरलेस पोस्ट लेना नहीं है मुझे, एंड आई डोंट वांट टू गेट इनटू दिस ग्रेट क्राइसिस. ऐसे फेल में आई डोंट वांट टू टेक दिस क्राइसिस. However, this politicians, this Duma, has created a provisional government. कि अभी वॉर चलेगा और ये गवर्नमेंट विल सॉल्व द इशू. However, this provisional government could not control the power on its own. They have to share the power. On top, provisional government was holding the power. At bottom, all these industrial city of Moscow, St. Petersburg, Stalingrad, ये सारी cities जो है बहुत बड़ी cities हो गई थी. And they have the local governments जो trade unions की तरह develop हुआ था. Where these parties they used to gather the membership, workers निकलते थे, उनको अपना अपना पैम्फलेट बांटते थे, मेंबर बना लेते थे. Then they vote among themselves, और वो ट्रेड यूनियन which do municipal work उनको एक में इकट्ठा कर लेते थे. These were called the Soviets. So provisional government Soviets, local level पे this provisional government could not assert its control. It do not have that type of bureaucracy. In those war days, it was absolute breakdown of law and order and bureaucracy. So this dual power agreement, or called Dvoivlasti. Dvoivlasti means dual power agreement. इस dual power agreement ने provisional government और Soviets को in an uneasy alliance. And these Soviets were having Mensheviks, Social Democrats, rural parties, not the Bolsheviks. Lenin in this environment comes back. He was asked by his party कि what to do next. तो वो कहता नहीं, he do not say to attack provisional government. वो provisional government को attack करने को नहीं कहता है. He do not ask Soviets or he do not ask Bolsheviks to attack provisional government. Because he thinks कि they cannot pull it off. कर नहीं पाएंगे इसे. This was the time when army as a third factor appears. The reason is that provisional government could neither end World War II, could neither end these killings, could neither end the inflation, could neither end the lack of resources. सब की सब चीजें वही रहती हैं. तो as a layman, मैं तो कहूंगा वादे पूरे करो. जैसे हम कहते हैं ना 15 लाख रुपए लाओ, वेयर आर माई 15 लाख रुपीज. तो उसी तरीके से दे वर आस्क्ड कि गिव आर प्रोमिसेस तो पूरे हुए नहीं. एंड दिस वाज द टाइम इन दी सोवियट्स, दीज पार्टीज, दे हैव ऑल्सो बी सीन बाय दिस पीपल एज द को कंस्पिरेटर्स ऑफ वॉर. Not that openly, but they were. हुआ ये कि रशियन आर्मी stepped in. ये हमेशा होता है. When politicians fight, army steps in. That's why political sanity is the only guarantee of no army rule. Example है कि when directory government was corrupt and could not control the inflation, जिसको कहते हैं असाई नोट्स, जो करेंसी फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन में आई थी. That currency was very inflating. No one wanted to keep that. There was lack of resources. So politicians or country has welcomed the coup of Napoleon. Napoleon came as a dictator. When there was politician in fighting an inflation in Chinese Civil War, the Mao's party came. When Zulfikar Ali Bhutto in 1977 has rigged the election or allegedly rigged the election, politician in fighting resulted in the coup of Ziaul Haq. In 1950s पाकिस्तान जब 2 बार कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली डिसॉल्व करी गई बाय गवर्नर जनरल, तो इस्कंदर रजा चौधरी, जैसे ही कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन आया, इस्कंदर रजा चौधरी एंड अयूब खान दे हैव टेकन ओवर. बाद में इस्कंदर रजा चौधरी वाज सेंट टू एग्जाइल इन फ्रांस एंड अयूब खान हैज ब्रॉट द डिक्टेटरशिप. तो वेन एवर द सिचुएशन वॉज नॉट कंट्रोल्ड बाय पॉलिटिशियंस, एक दूसरे पर गाली बलौज लांछन लगाते हैं, तो इट गिव्स द टाइम फॉर आर्मी टू स्टेप इन. इंडिया की पॉलिटिक्स में सैनिटी है. इवन आफ्टर लूजिंग राहुल गांधी एंड मोदी, पीछे जो कहें जब मिलते हैं तो एटलीस्ट दे डू नॉट अब्यूज देमसेल्फ, हंसी मजाक एक दूसरे की खिल्ली उड़ा लेते हैं. दैट्स वाई आर्मी नेवर फाउंड द गट्स टू टेक ओवर. द मोमेंट इंडियन पॉलिटिक्स विल सी अ ब्रेकडाउन, फर्दर ब्रेकडाउन, तो आर्मी जनरली कम्स टू फिल इन द स्पॉट. तो आर्मी आई. यहां पर एक आर्मी जनरल था जॉर्जी लुवोव. in July, the Lvov has attacked. Now either he attacked to take the dictatorship or he attacked to resurrect the king. या तो वो उसको जार निकोलस को वापस थ्रोन पे बिठाना था, he wanted to give throne back to Tsar Nicholas, or he wanted to have this dictatorship of his own. We don't know. उसके दिल में तो क्या था ये नहीं पता मुझे. After this, the provisional government had to arm the Soviets, provide arms and ammunition to the Soviets. Soviets को arms and ammunition provide कर दिए गए. And Bolsheviks have entered and their militia, their revolutionary guards have taken a lot of arms. After which Lvov was although defeated. But this, sorry, not Georgy Lvov. Lvov was the first prime minister, sorry. It's Kornilov. Lvov and Kerensky are the two prime minister of this provisional government. First is Georgy Lvov, second was Alexander Kerensky. Kerensky came in June to have more control on people. He came with authoritarian tendency. But उसके आते ही Kornilov affair हो गया. Kornilov has attacked. Kornilov was a general who has attacked his own country to have a coup. To stop the coup, provisional government has armed the Soviets. और जैसे सोवियत आर्म हुई, they were so powerful that they now in October has stormed the Winter Palace, the seat of provisional government. They have used the same arms against the provisional government. And the entire Soviets have taken over this provisional government, toppled the provisional government and taken over the power. And soon after it, they have ended World War I by Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, where 1/3 of European Russia was given to Germany as peace, 1/4 of the population. अब इसके दो व्यू हैं. One says that because Germany wanted peace, so it has offered it. Second says because these Bolsheviks were funded and supported by Germans. जैसे इंडिया में गदर पार्टी of Lala Hardayal, Reshmi Rumal movement of Deoband movement, all were supported by Germany and Ottomans. Ottomans ने यहाँ पे काफी support किया because British were the enemy of Ottomans. The Ottomans have supported the Muslims. Germans have clearly supported the other parties like Lala Hardayal ki. This is called Hindu-German conspiracy. First provisional government of India was made in Kabul, 1915. Prime Minister was Maulana Barkatullah. President was Mahendra Pratap. Likewise, Bolsheviks were also funded by Germans. That's why after their success, Germans have given them the treaty of so much of the territory. But left-wing scholarship इसको generally नहीं मानती है, because according to them, Lenin was a great hero, not any co-conspirator, not any agent sent by Germany. आया वो German train पे with the help of Germans ही था. However, these Soviets have taken over provisional government and stopped this. So why the Soviets got the public support? Why the Bolsheviks? Why the provisional? It was so easy for Soviets to take over provisional government. The reason was provisional government could not improve anything. And the only party which properly said to end the war is Bolsheviks. That is the reason behind the rising popularity of Bolsheviks. Bolsheviks ने आते ही war से अपने आप को खत्म किया. However, inflation and lack of resources could not be controlled because USSR simply slipped into civil war. And the position of Russians was even bad. In 1920, 1917 to 21, civil war continued. After civil war, till 28, Lenin and Stalin, पहले Lenin का दिया हुआ था new economic policy, which is mixed government or mixed economy, something which Nehru has imitated after our war. Trotsky called it sell-out communism, where private property was allowed, profit making was allowed. After which, 28, Stalin starts his 5-year plans. This is the story for some other day. कहानी ये है कि this is the reason that provisional government could not succeed. That's why the October Revolution had to take place, where Soviets have taken over the provisional government. So February Revolution, provisional government toppling the king. October Revolution, Soviets toppling the provisional government. तो कहते हैं फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन जो नहीं कर पाया वो रशियन रेवोल्यूशन ने किया. फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन कुड नॉट टेक द पावर from king. Politicians have taken the power, but it could not be taken from politicians. Reign of terror जैसे ही शुरू हुआ, it was again taken by the directory government, and again power remained at the level of politicians, and then it returned back to a dictator or who became king. तो power king से नीचे आई, नीचे से और नीचे नहीं आ पाई, फिर वापस ऊपर चली. In Russian Revolution, from king it came to politicians, and from politicians it came to people. If you think that Bolshevik party is true representative of people, आप इसको सवाल क्वेश्चन भी कर सकते हैं कि कहां आई नीचे. ये है कि पॉलिटिशियन से स्टालिन और लेनिन के पास चली गई. दे आर इक्वली पॉलिटिशियन, और वो तो किंग से भी ज्यादा टोटलिटेरियन हो. सो इफ यू आर लेफ्ट विंग, इफ यू बिलोंग टू जवाहरलाल नेहरू यूनिवर्सिटी और सच places, you will say कि रशियन रेवोल्यूशन वो नीचे तक आ गया. एंड इफ यू क्वेश्चन दिस हिस्टोरियोग्राफी, तो आप कहेंगे कहां आया नीचे. पॉलिटिशियन सिंपली चेंज्ड. आई लीव इट टू योर कॉन्शियस. द रशियन रेवोल्यूशन हैज फार रीचिंग इम्पैक्ट. इम्पैक्ट इट मेड सोशलिज्म फेमस इन द एंटायर वर्ल्ड. HRA, हिंदुस्तान रिपब्लिकन एसोसिएशन, converted itself into Hindustan Republican Association converted itself into HSRA, Hindustan Socialist Republican Army. Nehru, Bose, when Bhagat Singh, on the morning of his death, अब सही कहानी है, किसी ने कंट्राडिक्ट तो आज तक नहीं की, that he was reading the biography of Lenin. And when jailer came, I don't know how right it is, because many times these stories are also fictional. बट अब कभी नहीं निगेट करी गई तो शायद सही होगी कि भगत सिंह वॉज रीडिंग द बायोग्राफी ऑफ लेनिन, एंड व्हेन जेलर आस्क्ड हिम टू प्रिपेयर फॉर द फाइनल कैपिटल पनिशमेंट, ही सेज वेट, अ रेवोल्यूशनरी इज मीटिंग द अदर. तो दिस इज द टाइप ऑफ प्रेस्टीज लेनिन गॉट. अच्छा, लेनिन्स क्रिटिक ऑफ इंपीरियलिज्म एंड कनेक्टिंग इट विद कैपिटलिज्म has made majority of newly decolonized nation and their politicians left leaning, सोशलिस्ट बना दिए थे. इंडिया में भी CSP, कांग्रेस सोशलिस्ट पार्टी, CPI, फॉरवर्ड ब्लॉक, नेहरूवियन सोशलिस्ट एजेंडा, आवड़ी रेजोल्यूशन 1955, सेकेंड 5 ईयर प्लान, इंडस्ट्रियल पॉलिसी 1956, पूरा पाथ ही सोशलिज्म का है. द रीजन इज लेनिन इज अ सक्सेस. नेक्स्ट देखें कि वो चर्च हैज लॉस्ट इट्स पावर, सोशलिस्ट पैटर्न ऑफ इकोनॉमी, कोल्ड वॉर, कम्युनिस्ट बिकम. अच्छा, दूसरी बात सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट कि व्हेन रशियन रेवोल्यूशन वाज प्रॉमिसिंग दीज थिंग्स, वर्ल्ड, वो कहते हैं ना, इफ यू आर ब्रेव तो लक फेवर्स द ब्रेव, तो लक ने फेवर किया. ग्रेट डिप्रेशन हैज अपीयर्ड इन वेस्टर्न इकोनॉमी. वेस्टर्न वर्ल्ड वाज इन ग्रेट डिप्रेशन, तो इसने और ज्यादा इसको हवा दी. इट गेव कम्युनिस्ट क्लेम मोर क्रीडेंस. तो फिर कीन्स ने आके खैर बचा लिया कैपिटलिज्म को. ही हैज सेव्ड द कैपिटलिज्म बाय हिज कीन्शियन इकोनॉमिक्स, गवर्नमेंट सपोर्ट एंड ऑल दैट, बट स्टिल. तो कम्युनिज्म हैज emerged as a block. Communism has given the alternate world view to capitalism. Communism ये भी claim करता है that capitalism's improvements, giving more welfare funding, welfare state, then workers union. आज जो वर्कर्स की इतनी अच्छी कंडीशन है, दैट इज बिकॉज ऑफ द राइवल ब्लॉक वेटिंग टू टेक द कंट्रीज. तो ऑल दीज आर द लेगेसीज ऑफ रशियन रेवोल्यूशन. इवन द चाइनीज रेवोल्यूशन, विच वॉज इन इट्स अर्ली टाइम्स हेल्प्ड बाय रशियंस, बट माओ के आते ही वो एंटायरली चाइनीज हो गया. माओ ने सबसे पहले रशियन लीडर्स को ही भगाया. अकॉर्डिंग टू माओ, दिस रशियन वर्जन ऑफ industrialization is, or Russian version of communism is not truly suited to China. So Mao ने वो peasant based communism दिया, which made it him success. So this is what 5 questions. There is 6th question which we will leave for tomorrow or next class. If you want to write the question, you may write, amongst many factors, the Great Depression of 1929 played a major role in the rise of fascism in Germany. The question I want to ask in such a way which encapsulate a lot of things. वैसे तो वर्साई ट्रीटी पर ही पूछ सकते थे, but this will start from verse, and I make sure that I do the discussion in such a way that it should not look like that I am teaching you how to write an answer, but how to connect the concepts and how our story should have the connection. क्योंकि जब आप connected story लिख पाएंगे, if you are able to write the connected story, or word history में especially I have seen the problem is not answer writing, the problem is information, the knowledge. So majority of students lack that. Hopefully you will be able to read, write and understand. कुछ किसी को और डाउट हो तो do make it reach me or write in comment, जो आपको जैसे समझ में आए. You can email ऑफिशियली सर को ईमेल करवा दे तो he'll tell me. Next class we will have some other questions. कुछ और क्वेश्चन करेंगे. We will start from this Adolf Hitler, rise of Hitler, and then World War II and the post-war order. So I'll try to take as many questions as I can, but also we are having a revision with the help of these questions. Rather than ये क्वेश्चन है, ये इसका आंसर है. आंसर तो ये तो लिखा हुआ आपको अब तक मिल ही गया होगा. ये पूरे आंसर लिखे हुए हैं. तो I guess you will get all these answers, which will make your life and job easy. ठीक है भाई. Thanks.